Hello and welcome to the MinnMax Show, a good place to forget bad things. I'm Ben Hansen, joined by Suriel Vasquez.
Hi.
Jeff Marchiafava.
Hey.
And Kyle Hilliard.
Woo!
Always a technical hurdle to get these things up and running, but we've done it, I believe. If you're watching the video version, it's a different layout. I hope you enjoy what this is. But hey, what this is a hell of an episode. We got a lot that we're covering. There's a game here that I've written down called the Final Fantasy VII Remake. That I will share spoiler-free impressions of. I've only played the first 6 hours, and we'll get to that in a little bit. We're going to talk about the PlayStation 5 controller, which, of course, it's a Tuesday afternoon. Sony's got to reveal the PlayStation 5 controller.
Right,
right after Sony or Microsoft had announced their Inside Xbox thing was happening. Sony just happened to drop their controller.
Hey, this is the fun console wars that we all have grown to love. Then a little bit about Half-Life Alyx again. Then Jeff talking about tabletop games, and then maybe some fun surprises thrown in there as well. And then some great community questions in the back half of the show as we open up the Minbox. Table setting out of the gate is the deepest dive on Final Fantasy VII. That is our Game Club discussion. That is kicking off next week. This is going to be super fun. So we're breaking the game up into chunks, going as in-depth as possible. We're going to have the best, most thorough discussion about the game on the internet, not on the MinnMax Show. It's going to be a separate thing. It's going to be separately on the YouTube channel, and then if you want the podcast version, you can support us at the $5 tier, and then you get the podcast version, that exclusive feed, in addition to episodes of the MinnMax Show early and a bunch of other fun stuff. But, so, just so everybody knows, and we're all on the same page, the first episode of The Deepest Dive for Final Fantasy VII Remake will be airing on April 15th. We'll be recording it on the 14th, which means we'll have the post up for your thoughts on the 13th. And in that first chunk, we're covering everything up through Chapter 4. So at the end of Chapter 4 in the game, which is roughly 6 hours in, at the end of Chapter 4, a character will say, hey, are you sure you want to get on this train and launch this mission? You can stop right there and save it. That is the very end of Chapter 4. So, again, reminder, airing on the 15th. But if you support us on Patreon and you want to leave comments for us to read, because we're looking for very specific, fun things to dissect, and there are a lot of them in this opening chunk, that post will be going up on April 13th. Jeff, how are you feeling about the deepest dive on Final Fantasy VII Remake?
I'm excited and ready to get it started.
Oh, great. Yeah, we did the Great Goaty Hunt stream of the remake yesterday, and I noticed a lot of people were like, I'm just jumping in to say hi in the comments, then I'm going to bow out because I don't want any spoilers. And even in that stream, there are some things that people would consider spoilers, which we'll dance around for this discussion. But for that deepest dive, it's going to be very intense and spoiler-filled for those first 6 hours. But we have people, like Jeff and Kyle, who have never finished Final Fantasy VII before, so we won't be spoiling things from the original game in that deepest dive. We're going to treat it like everybody's going in cold to this thing. And then also, Kyle, coming up on Friday is a new episode of MinnTracks.
Yeah, we recorded that last night.
Oh, awesome. So this is our music podcast hosted by Matt Helgeson. It's in a separate podcast feed. You can find it. If you find it and you like it, please leave us a review on iTunes. But what's the matchup for MinnTracks this week, Kyle?
Well, of course, Hansen. It's Van Morrison's sophomore album, Astral Weeks, and Blink-182's Enema of the State.
Hell yeah.
Oh, wow.
I love it. That is why that podcast rules. Did you have a good time recording that?
Yeah. No, I have a...
Did Helgeson have a good time recording that?
I think he did. Like, I really think he took away some positive things for Blink-182, but
nice.
I really genuinely love Blink-182 and that album. So it was a lot of fun to dive into that for sure. I'm excited for that episode to go
Talk
live.
about all the small things, yeah.
Yeah, and how that's the worst song on the album. We definitely go into that for sure.
Love it. Okay, let's talk about the PlayStation 5 controller, the DualSense, as it's called. They're ditching the DualShock. Gut reactions. Jeff Marchiafava, when you first saw that thing, what did your gut tell you?
It looks weird.
Kyle, gut reaction.
It looks very weird, and I was worried about the buttons on it. It didn't, because it was just that first, straightforward shot. It looked like they weren't sticking up enough. But then when I looked through all the different ones, they seem pretty much analogous to what we have now. So that's all right.
It is.
But
oh, go ahead.
And also the other thing that I thought when I first saw it was it reminded me of the old PS3 Boomerang prototype.
Yeah, for sure.
The overall shape, it seems to be getting bigger for some reason.
My reaction was big. It looks bigger. In the text on the blog post, they're kind of like, it feels smaller than it looks. I'm like, okay, we'll see what that's about.
Because they probably focus tested
yeah.
a little bit, and that was a lot of the reactions. Like, it looks like the Duke too. And so I was like, okay, well, let's make sure we have wording in that blog that says it's smaller in your hands than it looks. And it's one of those things too where, yes, it looks kind of bloated. It looks interesting. I trust them that it's comfortable. I don't think they're going to release something that's uncomfortable in this day and age, But then, somebody I think on the MinnMax Discord, they posted like, well, look at like the Astro C40, which people see as a wonderful PlayStation controller, and like that thing's pretty big and hefty. And it's so weird that simple Photoshop that people had out there of the DualSense controller, but in a full black matte instead of the two-tone. I was like, somehow it makes it look so much better in my mind, but I'm not opposed to the white. It just somehow tricks the eye, I think, into making it look funkier than maybe it really is.
It's hard to know. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say it looks like a DualShock 4 with like a sleeve on top of it, and I think that the two-tone is like what makes it look like that. But yeah, Serial, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, it's also weird because we don't necessarily have like a good sense of scale, so it might actually, for all we know, it's slightly smaller than the DualShock 4, but it's like the form factor makes it look bigger than it normally is because we don't have like someone's hands on it or anything, so it's hard to know exactly how big it is. So I think it might, like they said, it might look bigger than it is because of the more rounded design, and the two-tone color I think makes it look bigger.
Yeah,
they should have thrown a quarter next to it or something.
Yeah, or just like a Mark Cerny face. Just everything has a point of scale of reference there.
It's just like the whole background instead of white, it's just Mark Cerny's face, and it's like to scale basically.
Serial, you said on Twitter you're very excited about a certain port.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure it'll have USB-C.
And why does that excite you so much?
USB, which is good because, well, for one, it's two-sided. You don't have to worry about it.
That is true.
Also, I think it's like an overall better data transfer stuff. And they also mentioned that they're trying to maintain battery life better on the thing because it will still have the rechargeable battery that is like intrinsic to the controller versus the Xbox One's reliance on batteries. Which I think we talked about it a couple episodes ago.
Yeah, we all hated it unanimously.
Right, yeah, exactly. I still tend to prefer the battery stuff, but I think that I like that they mentioned specifically that, we know about the battery life problem. We're trying to do better by it. I also have like, as a Android user, I'm more bought into USB-C than anything else at this point. So I think moving from micro USB to USB-C, I think is probably the right move.
Right. And they did clarify too that there is a headphone jack. You couldn't see it on there, but it is in there. Also changes now is the home button looks like the PlayStation button. Interesting.
It's the logo instead of like the logo on like a top of a little circle or something.
Yeah.
So it's a more like, it's less buttony.
Right. And they also got rid of the share button, which they're very proud of with the PlayStation blog post, and replaced it with the create button that has looks like a button is shouting at the TV.
Right. So
it's French fries. You got hamburger button and French fries.
And French fries. Yeah, they've given you a whole meal, that controller. It's weird that they go from like text on the controller versus like sideways stripes and vertical stripes. It's really it's like this weird. I guess now we can manufacture the controller in every territory without having to like change the font or whatever. But it's this weird like, look, this is way better. We've changed the share function to the create function, which no one will be confused by the difference by. Especially since we don't really say what that means at all. Like, we'll have stuff later on about what that means.
I think it means it launches dreams if you press that button.
Oh yeah, it just immediately puts you into like their Blender thing. It's like, if you want to make this thing randomly.
I mean, there's some flowery language in that blog post, but like, I mean, it's gonna be functionally identical.
I'd imagine.
The biggest difference, I think the two biggest differences that stand out are the haptic triggers, which they haven't had before. They obviously took inspiration from the seminal analog triggers on the GameCube controller and have said, we need those. And then the other thing was the microphone array that is now intrinsic to every controller. So now
it's built in.
Literally everyone will have a mic.
Which even in the blog post,
like
the
Wii U gamepad, finally.
Exactly.
It is like weird wording in there where they're like, you don't want a headset if you're going to be gaming for a long time, but it is. I hope it sounds better than like the PS4 little earbud that you got originally, something like that. But I'm very curious to see what that sounds like, because even just, is it assuming that you're playing with headphones, or will it somehow be able to pick up your voice and not the sound of the TV? I want to know. How that sounds.
I wonder if that's why it's an array or whatever. If they have like just a some weird thing, if it's like a tech thing where they can say like, hey, because if it's a microphone array, we can maybe change which microphone we're using,
Right.
depending on like how loud, what kind of sounds we're detecting, which will be interesting.
Yeah.
But-
So here's the wording from the blog post. For example, with adaptive triggers, we had to consider how the components would fit into the hardware without giving it a bulky feel. Our design team worked closely with our hardware engineers to place the triggers and actuators. The designers were then able to draw the lines of how the exterior of the controller would look and feel, with the challenge of making the controller feel smaller than it really looks. And then also in terms of the share button, this is all they really say. Oh, well, they talk about the origins of this thing by saying, when PlayStation 4 launched in 2013, the DualShock 4 wireless controller garnered a lot of positive feedback from gamers and developers for being the best PlayStation controller yet, and for introducing forward-looking features like the share button. This brought us to the next question. How do we build upon that success? And the answer was pump it full of more features and inflate it a little bit.
It's weird that I think they also mentioned like, hey, we noticed that not a lot of people were getting a lot of use out of the touch functionality of the touchpad or whatever, but they still had like they've still committed to keeping that in there.
Yeah, I wonder for backwards compatibility reasons mainly, or how they see that.
Yeah, it's a weird
Maybe.
loose hanging thread in that blog post.
At least they got rid of the light bar.
Well, yes, Jake Zielsdorf wrote in, actually, to the MinnMax show here, and he says, hey, with the reveal of the PlayStation 5 DualSense controller, I noticed it doesn't have a prominent light bar on the top of the controller like the DualShock 4. That light bar was integral to tracking the DualShock for the PlayStation VR. Do you think this change means next-gen PSVR will switch to inside-out tracking like the Oculus Quest?
It's definitely possible. I imagine that, whatever tech they have in the PSVR, whether it's inside tracking or not, they just won't need it for that,
Yeah.
But I'm very curious to see what that is more than even the controller. Because I think for as much as the internet freaked out about it, I think the biggest differences are aesthetic. I really don't think it's like this huge like step up or whatever from the DualShock 4. I think it looks very different, but it's got the D-pad, it's got 2 analog sticks. They didn't stagger them, which I think would have been huge. I think that would have been like a much bigger change than anything else they've announced.
People would have taken to the streets. Yeah, I know they're not supposed to right now, but they would have abandoned the rules of social distancing just to riot.
So it's not like they added like
This is essential, damn it.
Yeah. But that is like, I think the look of it will be interesting, and then the feel. Obviously no one's gotten their hands on it, but I'll be interested to see like what the feel and make of the analog sticks and stuff is going to be.
Yeah, I saw John Beach from Media Molecule, designer over there. He tweeted out, Debug and LED approve, who are like the two kind of sci-fi characters in Dreams, because it looked like the design looks so similar.
Look like that. Yeah.
Not that it's related, just a happy coincidence. But yes, you talk about like the visual impact leaving a splash in the industry. Surreal. It goes back to the larger theme, I think, of just like trying to figure out what is Sony doing? What is the roadmap here for the PlayStation 5? Is this a smart move? Is there a better way to do that? Because to have that shock moment of, what? A white DualShock? What is? We've had light gray, but white is far out, especially two-tone. But to have that impact, I feel like I wish I saw it bundled with the console and like a sizzle reel showing like some new design sense that they're going for. But instead, just one day, just basically tweeting out a picture of the new controller just feels like there should have been a more efficient splash going on here, right?
Yeah, they didn't even there's no video of it of them showing off like the microphone array or any of the haptic feedback. They just kind of mention it, which is it's been part of this larger weird rollout from Sony about it seems like they still haven't finalized the hardware design, I guess, considering that they've held off on it for so long. I mean, who knows how the rollout would have been different had current events not taken over so much, but
right.
It's this weird I guess we'll announce when we need to, since we're the market leader at this point. So no real need to really it's our race to lose. It seems like is their stance on it.
I think it's also just they're in a weird spot just because they still have huge first-party games on the PlayStation 4, and I'm sure that's part of the strategy is not wanting to step on that, right? So it's like when we have Ghost, when we have Last of Us now indefinitely delayed. We'll talk about that later in the show with community questions, but it's just that weird thing of we would love to get out of the gate, I'm sure, but we don't want to undercut these other games. Whereas Microsoft's full steam ahead, let's go. We got a dry run here.
Let's talk about the
We got Bleeding Edge out the door. Yeah.
Yeah. Ori and the Will of the Wisps came out. We're done. We're going out on a high note. So
am I missing something? I think that's true, right? I mean, they're ready to go at this point.
Yeah.
I can't imagine there would be a surprise thing. Yeah, and it's also like Microsoft's pitch hasn't necessarily been about exclusives and more about their ecosystem. And if the Series X is just like, hey, this is a better version of the things we have now, of like the console we have now, we're not going to have exclusives for the first year. So they really don't have a reason other besides like, hey, maybe the console's not going to launch this year.
Yeah.
Beyond like saying like, hey, here's everything you need to know about here's what the console looks like. Here's accidentally maybe the launch window and everything else about like their system. I don't think they're holding. They have no reason to hold off. Whereas I think Sony has definitely a reason to, at least until like, let's say July, to really go full force on like all of their announcements.
Yeah. Okay, predictions right now. Line in the sand. Hold us to it, listeners and viewers. What color will the PlayStation 5 be, Kyle Hilliard?
White.
You think it's going to be two-tone?
I think it'll be white.
Okay. Are we all going pure white? Because I think it's probably going to match the controller.
No, I think it's going to be black and white, kind of like a Stormtrooper helmet kind of mashup that will match the controller.
Black and white and played all over. Serial? What do you think?
I think it'll be mostly black with maybe like a white accent. Like maybe one part of it will be like there will be a stripe maybe around the center or something that'll be white.
I could see it. Yeah. In the middle of those Cerny layers, which I think they're officially called the flapjack stacks of the PlayStation 4 at this point. Yeah.
They want to get real fancy. You know how the base PS4 had that blue stripe along the center? Maybe we'll just have like a more prominent version of that, and that light will be white.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool.
Super annoying if you're playing at night. I can see that. But yeah, I think this does point to there being at least some white on that console.
You know what I was thinking about? I was thinking about how I've never seen one of those launch white Wii U's out in the wild. Remember there was like the 8 gig Wii U model at launch?
Yeah.
If you have a white Wii U, tweet it at our Twitter account at MinnMax Show, because I want to see that sucker. I want to see if anybody has
painting a black Wii U white. That's cheating.
Absolutely. Yeah. And don't just take a picture of it, and like brighten it in Photoshop. Also cheating. And I think I'll be able to tell. But Jim Ryan at the end of that blog post slipped in his own comments there saying, DualSense. Whoa, we're blowing it. DualSense marks a radical departure from our previous controller offerings and captures just how strongly we feel about making a generational leap with PlayStation 5. That sentence alone, I think, is really interesting.
That word radical, though. That's a bit much.
Do you think? I mean, I think it's a radical design for the PlayStation controller.
It still has the touchpad. It still has the 4 buttons.
It's got all the things you want out of a controller. It's just like the shell of it is notably different.
I feel like it feels more different than the leap to 3 to 4.
Yes, but I think like in the grand scale of things, it's not. I think the DualShock 4 having the touchpad and the share button specifically instead of a select thing, which eventually like the touchpad became the select button.
Yeah,
I think that felt like a bigger departure at the time. Not knowing that it wasn't really going to be used, especially like.
I think you're discounting the color.
This doesn't have any new functionality. That's right. I mean,
this is the problem I think with the way that they have rolled this out in just a simple blog post, and also saying, "Hey, we're not going to talk about this. What the hell this create button does?"
Yeah,
we all just kind of assume, okay, well, create is just going to mean create a screenshot or create a video or something. But if there's some larger integration in like first-party games that allow you to create content or something like that, that could be really interesting. But they're not talking about anything like that.
Software.
Well, hang on, Kyle. You're forgetting.
Hardware.
The core of it is the haptic feedback throughout the controller. I mean, that's why it's called the DualSense. I mean, that hopeful feeling of you'll feel the twing of a bow and you'll feel the rumble of the cars.
Functionality. I think we're getting into semantics a little bit here, but that doesn't change the way you interact with a game via controller. Like radical to me is the Wii remote. That changed the way you interacted with a game. This will not change the way I can still play PlayStation 4 games with that controller, and it'll be exactly the same.
Yeah, I think it's interesting more so just talking about how, so many people are being like, what's the difference? You look at like Xbox's strategy, I think they're nailing it messaging so far. At the same time, it is that feeling of, well, how much of a leap is it really going to be? And so it's interesting for PlayStation to, with one of their first real messages about PlayStation 5, to say that like, it's going to be a generational leap. It's going to be radical with the PlayStation 5. He says the new controller, along with the many innovative features in PlayStation 5, will be transformative for games. There you go. Mr. Ryan said it, Kyle. Continuing our mission at PlayStation to push the boundaries of play now and in the future. To the PlayStation community, I truly want to thank you for sharing this exciting journey with us as we head towards PlayStation 5's launch in holiday 2020. Ooh. We look forward to sharing more information about PlayStation 5, including the console design, in the coming months. months. So that to me is again a reminder that maybe after Tsushima,
yeah,
it could wait that long.
I do want to be clear that like I feel like I'm coming off as a pessimist. I do like the controller. I think it's cool, and I think we kind of moved past the microphone.
Yeah,
I think that's a big deal. Like me and Jeffem were just trying to play Warzone like 2 weeks ago. Supposedly, it's a secret, but I couldn't find a microphone. Like I couldn't find a headset, and so we're just like, oh screw it, I'll just play without a mic. Where
that sucks.
In that instance, like with that controller, I would at least have something. That's better than nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like convenience is important, and I think people will use it just through convenience.
Yeah. You're also gonna get a lot of those ambient noises where someone's not really interacting with you, but it's like it just happens to pick up their house, so it's just like them talking to someone else, or it's like their kid in the background or whatever.
The dogs barking.
So, yeah, and that's the best part of online gaming, obviously. So they're really leaning into that.
Yeah. I don't know if you all listened to it, but IGN had a really great interview with Phil Spencer on IGN Unlocked, their podcast. Kyle, did you listen to that by chance?
No, I haven't. I'll check it out.
Okay, yeah, it's very good. And so it was one of those where Ryan McCaffrey asked like exactly the correct questions, and it's just a bizarre timing, I think, for Phil Spencer to give an hour-long interview about next gen. He does such a good job of like, well, I can't reveal too much, but just like, here's where we're at right now. And in that interview, he also reconfirmed, just like Jim Ryan did, that like, yeah, we're going for this year. Like, don't think the coronavirus is completely effing us at this point. But Phil Spencer is like, health comes first, health of our employees. So we're keeping an eye on it. But right now, we're still full steam ahead. And he actually addressed the interesting question of talking about, manufacturing in China. And he's like, it seems to be booting back up. So we don't have any signs to be worried about on that aspect. When it comes to software, maybe there's another deal. And so
that's cool.
IGN even asked him about, how much those software delays, because it's tough to develop games from home, could impact the release. And he's like, well, if one game isn't ready, I don't think that we'd hold the release of the entire console. He seemed to be more open to the idea of saying like,
even
okay,
if that game is Halo?
I don't know. Yeah, that's what he was asking about. It's like, we don't know. But then it's interesting because Ryan McCaffrey also asked him about like Forza and like, okay, there's going to be a new Forza at this launch, and what's your plan for releasing games throughout launch? And Phil Spencer is addressing it in an interesting way. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but he's like, I think having a bunch of games at launch is less important than having like a concrete roadmap, especially with Game Pass. Like, why overwhelm people if you just say, hey, buy this console, and then, hey, maybe Forza will come a month later. He didn't say that, but that seemed to be what I was reading into it, is just like those big first-party games might be at more of a constant clip because of that different, a system of delivering it.
Man, history shows that like having a million genres at launch is nothing compared to having one really good game.
Yeah. Like Halo Infinite, hopefully.
Look at Apple Arcade, or something like that, if you want to consider that like a platform launch, or Oculus, like compare that to the launch like Xbox One with Halo or something like that. It's like having like fewer, better software is way better for you in the long run.
Yeah. And also I think depending on what Sony does, whether like how compatible or not, PS4 games will be on PS5, even just having like being able to say like, hey, Cyberpunk will run at higher resolutions and a better frame rate on our console during the holidays. I think that could be a bigger thing that people are thinking right now, even though it will be available on Xbox One X, but just saying like, hey, if you don't want to bother with a PC, get an Xbox Series X and you will have the best version of Cyberpunk available.
Yeah.
Especially if like the PS5 can't run Cyberpunk for, compatibility reasons, or you have to get a different version. I think having that streamlined version of like, just buy this and you'll have, like Cyberpunk is effectively a better game on our hardware.
I love that idea, especially like word of mouth. But if you don't have that marketing deal with CD Projekt Red and your Microsoft, how do you message that?
I think you just make an ad where you just say like, hey, our new Forza, our new like whatever games we have, they all run better, and you just need to include like a thing of like Cyberpunk.
Can you do that? Maybe I'm naive. If they don't have that marketing deal, would they ever promote it like that?
I don't think there's any crazy thing preventing them from doing it, especially if it's part of a larger ad where it's like, hey, like if they can say like, hey, you can run it at 4K, 60 FPS, and they show like Forza, Cyberpunk, and like Halo or whatever.
Yeah.
Like having that thing of like, any game you buy this holiday season will run better on Series X. If the PlayStation 5 can't promise that, I think that's that could be the angle that they lean on. Yeah.
So also in that IGN Unlocked podcast, we should definitely check out. But There's a quick beat talking about the Initiative, which is the Santa Monica studio, the new one that's being built up by Daryl Gallagher, who used to be at Crystal Dynamics. And, Phil Spencer had that cryptic tweet where he's like, they're working on a lot of new and some old things. And so people are thinking it's some old IP that they're bringing back. But we talked about before on the podcast, rooting for Perfect Dark. But it's interesting, he's talking about the studio overall, and Phil Spencer's like, yeah, the Initiative, they're doing things in a different way. And they want to share the way that they're doing things differently with the industry soon. So it's like, I don't know if that's just development strategies or just team structure or like what that could possibly mean.
Making an engine? Like this is the engine to use to build Xbox games or something?
That could be interesting. That could be interesting. I don't know. A lot of questions. Also on console news, did you see recently Stadia said, hey, we're now open to everybody. It's no longer the huge... the huge package in order to stream these games. It's now, Kyle, did you look into this deal?
Yeah, it hasn't in our region yet, at least for me.
Yeah.
So, by the way, which I did, I sprinted. I went and got the app. I went to go sign into the site. Like you're listening to this a day removed, so maybe it'll be fine. But like, you might just have to wait until that option becomes available because right now it's not for us.
Okay.
But like but like I'm definitely gonna sign up. I think you get 3 free months of Pro.
I believe it's 2 months of Pro, and with that you get Grid, Destiny 2, and Thumper for free if you just remember to cancel them later on. It's pretty good.
Which is great for testing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's perfect. That's like all because I just want to try it, So like if I can play, and Thumper's like a good game to test it too, because that's a rhythm game.
Yeah.
It's also a good game. Don't listen to what Jeff Cork has to say.
Yeah, it's intense. It's fun.
But I like everyone's kind of like Stadia's a failure. They're trying to like release it, and I don't really buy into that because it's like this was the plan long term.
And they definitely spin it in that post about like the world needs more games. We're here to help. It's a down period, but it's like they were going to release in 2020 anyway, probably around this window. So I wonder if this was always the plan, and now they just spin the messaging of it out of the gate.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm excited, honestly. Like, I'm excited to try it out and have that version. I want to play PC games on my Mac, sitting in bed and stuff. So I can't wait.
Well, it's time to be alive. So in that blog post, they say as well what everybody's thinking. With increased demand due to more people at home during this time, we're taking a responsible approach to internet traffic. For Stadia, we've always adjusted bandwidth use based on a variety of in-home and local internet factors. To reduce load time on the internet further, we're working towards a temporary feature that changes the default screen resolution from 4K to 1080p. So it's like it's weird when, in Europe, they're throttling PlayStation download speeds, and then also I think YouTube does a default to 480 in Europe. But like when so many people are scaling back on that, it's interesting for Stadia within Google to be like, it's still going to look badass, just from 4K to 1080. Everybody.
I'm sure the Google Stadia stampede is just going to rock the internet in the next couple of days.
I mean, you can play Doom Eternal on there if you don't have a console. There's some people out there that this might be the right option for, but. We'll see, but I'm excited to see how it ends up there. Let's get to it.
Round of applause.
Final Fantasy VII Remake is here, everybody. So,
how often have you cried?
I was talking to Jeff and the Great Goaty Hut.
Right? That was my first question, Kyle.
No tears down the cheeks, but there is a moment, which does not seem like much. There's a moment when just like the battle theme kicked in, where tears welled in my eyes, because it was just like that on top of just like the first hour and a half, maybe 2 hours or so, is just like, oh my God. Oh, it's just me going, this is absurd. This is unbelievable is the word where I keep coming back to. And then like just having that battle theme kick in, it was just like, this is it. And it's so silly. So again, all grains of salt being swallowed. I'm only like 6 hours in. And so it could go off the rails. I don't know. I have tried to limit myself. I have not watched the trailers that Square Enix has released because apparently those are filled with spoilers. I've only read Joe Juba from Game Informer's review. I haven't read any other reviews out there. But I even think, even if it goes off the rails after this in just the worst possible way, like nothing can take away those first 6 hours for me, which it is so silly. And I know this is the point of a remake, but it really just felt like, yeah, I have the exact feelings that I have not felt so strongly since I was a kid playing this for the first time. And that's all you want from a remake, right? Is just to be swept back through this time machine.
Yeah, and that's what I was kind of saying yesterday, that having not played that, like I could never get those kind of feelings or know what what Final Fantasy VII fans would know replaying this if I had just gone back and replayed the old game, because it would just look like garbage and it would probably play like garbage, and I just wouldn't be able to understand that. But I feel like I'm getting the kind of nostalgic version that's in everyone's minds. I get to kind of experience that new alongside with them. And that's why I'm excited about this.
Except for like there's fun twists in there too. Like even during the stream, like the music is just melting my soul because the soundtrack in that game, believe it or not, is unbelievable. And then someone in the chat's like, "What's with this song? It sounds like Lord of the Rings." I was like, "Lord, it sounds like Final Fantasy VII. It's like this orgasmic version of Seven's soundtrack, you maniac." So there's still going to be that disconnect, I think, for a lot of first-timers out there. But Gabriel Loke wrote in and says, "Hey, as somebody who's never touched the Final Fantasy series, let alone Final Fantasy VII, do you think I should play the VII Remake?" I think it'd be a pretty good place to start. I mean, if you don't mind action RPGs, you don't mind some Japanese RPG tendencies in there, like some of the dialogue might be like, "I don't know about this." Some of the voice acting might be like, "I don't know about this," every once in a while. I think you'll have a good time with it, Gabriel. Plus, like, if you're just a fan of video games, and especially video game development, like, I think from what I've played so far, it's like, I think this is like the best produced game I've ever played in my life. It just drips with money and effort. Even just like the stupid things like the mini games where you're playing darts and stuff, like the finishing shot Jeffem saw in the stream yesterday. It's just like this absurd finale for even the dart mini game where it's like, is there anything you didn't spend millions of dollars on here, Square? It is bonkers how smooth it is. And I'm playing it on a PlayStation 4 as well. And it's just like butter. It is amazing. So run, don't walk, everybody. Suriel, what's your hype level for Final Fantasy VII right now?
I do want to play it, especially since like it's like kind of the capper for a bunch of releases recently.
Yeah.
And there's really, especially now, really not much until like maybe Ghost of Tsushima, assuming that doesn't get delayed. But I've heard really good things about the battle system, about how it's like genuinely novel and it has like an interesting mix of like the ATB bar and being able to control all of your different party members. I think that stuff is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I've heard some things about how it kind of tweaks the original storyline, which I'm kind of curious to see. But
I'm curious because you haven't played or finished Final Fantasy VII originally, right?
I played maybe an hour of like the original PC version.
Oh wow!
At like a cousin's house, and just did not really rock it at all. It just felt like it's not like an experience that I remember too much, but I remember doing it.
Yeah.
So I have never played the game too much, but I'm curious to see how this game compares to the plotline of the original, especially since it does feel like, I mean, they mentioned in some of their marketing materials that Sephiroth does appear a little bit earlier.
Well, that just 6 hours in, there's a lot of like, nothing earth-shattering at this point, but it's a lot of like, okay, they slid that up. It's basically, they're taking some things that are going on later in Final Fantasy VII and kind of incorporating them earlier. There's one like lore change where I'm like, I'm not crazy about that so far, but from the vibe of the internet, it seems like they do make some changes later on, which I'm still in the dark about, and I'm very curious about. I saw some people being like, they Kingdom Hearts'd it up. I don't know what that means yet. In my mind, that means
Goofy shows up.
Yeah, that's right. No, just like excruciating cutscenes. And I've enjoyed the timing so far.
It makes convolution was like a word that I read in a couple of reviews. I think it might be a matter of overcomplicating, because that's Kingdom Hearts, man. It's way too complicated for its own good,
Right.
So that's a fear, but.
In terms of plot, though, I think maybe my chief concern is that, like, because they do feel the need to like make sure that it is a 40-hour game out of like a not like a huge section of Final Fantasy VII. I guess my concern would be that like they need the feel to like, oh, here's this incidental thing that was just in Final Fantasy VII. Let's dive into the backstory of that for an hour and a half and say like, hey, that this was because of this, and then this. And just have like a convoluted storyline over a thing that it maybe isn't super integral to the
that could be. I haven't
I
haven't seen that yet. Like, from my perspective, it just lets you soak in those environments so much more, and just silly things like, the members of Avalanche that are in the original game, and like, oh, I love those characters in the original game, but there's really not much going on here. And now getting to know them a little bit better, maybe for some new players, it'd be like, this is too much time spent with these folks. But for me, it's just like, oh my God, like the detail that they go into on these characters is just, it's wonderful. And I'm curious to see what that split is like. And again, we'll go really deep into it. I'd argue the deepest into it with the Deepest Dive Game Club and stuff, and get specific on exactly what we're talking about here. But downside so far is chapter 3, there's some side quests. And I think maybe the side quests later on are also kind of not great, but like the chapter 3 side quests are literally go kill 4 rats. It's like, if you're designing an RPG, everybody, like, you got to know not to do that. And some are more interesting than others, but they don't seem great from what I played. That's like the low point, but it dropped from tears in my eyes to like, this is fine, during that section. And so you can skip those if you'd like to, because some of those are a little lame around the sides. But yeah, that's it. And also, I want to know the full voice cast. Because there's some characters in the room like, that sounds like a certain somebody, but I can't bring up the credits from the main menu, so I guess I'll have to wait and find out.
IMDb.
I'm kind of scared of spoilers, though, which is weird to say, but I don't know what's going to be on there. I'm scared something might pop up.
Goofy.
What's that?
Yeah.
Goofy.
The voice is goofy.
Exactly. Yeah, goofy voices, Yuffie. It's a complete mess. But yeah, it's incredible. So again, the deepest dive is going to be next week, and it's going to be the best, most thorough discussion about the game on the internet, we promise. And so get ready for that, everybody. You can support us on Patreon if you want to leave a comment for us to read. But I was thinking about it, like between Resident Evil 3, Final Fantasy 7, and Half-Life Alyx, it's like, what a satisfying time to be a nostalgic gamer. It just seems like so many...
You can throw Black Mesa in there, too.
Yeah, you're right. It just feels like the industry during this period is just feeding...
Out of ideas.
Or I'd argue just feeding fans delicious ice cream. Like, remember your childhood?
I had that thought, too. I was like, finished Resident Evil 3 and went back to Black Mesa, and I'm excited for Final Fantasy. It's like, oh, it's weird that the main games I'm playing right now are all really well-done remakes of classic games.
What'd you think about Resident Evil 3 after finishing it?
I liked it a lot. It definitely feels it got more and more on rails kind of as you go along.
Yeah.
But I kind of liked it for that reason. Like I just liked because someone referred to it as like a roller coaster, where Resident Evil 2 is like a haunted house. Like they're both like amusement park things.
Yeah.
Which I like.
But I think people are still overdoing that. It's not.
It felt like you were just kind of going along this fun roller coaster, and I liked the bosses. I liked fighting Nemesis a lot, like in the arena and stuff like that, I guess you could call it.
Right.
But yeah, I had a good time with it.
Oh, good. And then Half-Life Alyx, without spoiling anything there, both you and Surreal finished that?
Yeah, I giggled loudly during the credits of that game.
Oh, good.
Yeah, there were multiple moments where I was like, multiple layers of realization of like, oh, and then I just had to pause and just like, Jesus. Yeah, like the things they're doing with this ending.
The weight of like 13 years of waiting, like all culminates in I would say the last 30 minutes. And
that's
it's
fantastic.
Just like you hands down just totally focused on every single word that is being spoken, because you're like, this is all I'm going to get for a decade. So like
it's also
it's great.
Oh,
I love the end of that game so much.
Yeah, there's also like overall as like a game, I think I've had some of my favorites and kind of least favorite moments in gaming in that, and like that's it simultaneously to me makes the strongest argument and strongest arguments against in certain points for VR. Like there's like towards the end, there's a sequence that I feel is like the thing that you need to experience in VR, and a sequence that I don't think that has like really any power outside of it being a VR section that I think is amazing, made like one of the best sequences in a game ever. But there are also like really frustrating points that have to do with like the tech involved with VR.
Yeah.
That kind of get in the way sometimes. But beyond, like in terms of this being a Half-Life game in a VR platform, I'm really happy with it.
Nice. And if you want to learn specifics about that, we're going to be recording a Max Spoilers, right? Between you two, talking all about specifics of all this stuff at the end of the game.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm eager to talk in depth about it, sir. So
it'll be on
all like this right now is the most I think that him and I have said to each other about the ending.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So perfect. That'll be a fun conversation on our YouTube channel and then in the Patreon exclusive feed. Hey Jeff, what have you been doing this last week, man?
I played some Pillars of Eternity 2.
Oh, on console, the Obsidian CRPG.
Yeah. It came to console a while ago. I totally understand why everyone loves it, and if you are into, kind of those old school CRPGs, you should totally check it out. It plays perfectly fine on console. It is weird, and it reminded me of a letter that we got from readers a while ago about juggling between two very different games, because I was playing this and Doom Eternal at the same time, and they could not be any more different than one another, but And I also feel like I have only scratched the surface with the hours that I've played. But one big impression is they kind of made a big deal about they added a turn-based mode into it. You can now play through the entire game as a turn-based game as opposed to kind of the real-time pause and continue for strategizing the different games. And I tried that initially because I do prefer turn-based games, but after like the first hour I just reset and started again as the new one. It does change a lot of things, and you can tell they put a lot of effort into making it work as a turn-based game, but it slows things down so much, and it does not feel as well to have, because you can have like 10 different enemies and your party all fighting in one match, and to kind of go through their moves one at a time versus everyone acts at the same time, and then they're based, they can act again based on the cooldown timers. It has a very different feeling, but not in a way that I actually enjoyed. So I would recommend doing the real-time normal version of it, but the console version has added new content. They kind of have a whole piratey thing going on now. And
did you play Pillars 1 at all?
Huh?
Did you play Pillars 1 at all?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, and then it's just, the reason that people love these games is just the sheer amount of depth to it and storytelling. And you can kind of mix and match your different classes. You can kind of meld two classes together, and it's just the amount of different abilities and things that you can unlock is just incredible. So if these kind of games have ever interested you, and if you have a bunch of free time, which we all know that you do at this point because we're all stuck at home, then it's one to check out.
Nice. Anything else you've been playing?
I've been playing a bunch of tabletop games with the wife.
Oh, do you each multiply yourselves and have different personalities for these different people around the table?
No, we've been playing one-on-one games. Games that are good for two players. And I have two recommendations if people want them.
Please.
And I have them here because I'm sitting next to the pile of games that I had for them.
Ooh.
So this is one. It's called Lost Cities. This is kind of a classic card game that's very simple, and it has proven just to be an excellent filler when you don't want to play something that's too mentally strenuous, but basically you're building out rows of cards that will score you points at the end of the game, but each row that you choose to start counts as negative points against you until you reach a certain threshold of points with different numbered cards. And so it's this very interesting back and forth, and the other person can get the cards that you discard if you don't want them. So it's this very tense decision of, am I going to start another row? Can I get it up to the point that I need that it will score me lots of points, or is it going to count against me? My wife and I had a lot of fun going back and forth on that one, and we have I think we're even at this point of who has won versus the other. But it's a cheap one, and I can't imagine a pair of players that it wouldn't go well for. You don't have to be huge into board games, but even if you are huge into board games and you like games, there's still a place for it if you're looking for something.
Lost Cities is the name of that one?
Yeah.
Sweet.
And the other one, Hanson, this one's right up your alley.
Are you kidding me?
Raptor, yes. This is another two-player strategy game, but it's very asymmetric in terms of what you are doing versus your opponent.
Weird.
Where one person controls a bunch of scientists that you're moving around on the board, and the other person controls a mama raptor and 5 baby raptors.
Shut up.
And so exactly. The scientist has to either capture 3 baby raptors or put the mother to sleep. And the mother raptor has to either get 3 of their babies to escape or just eat all of the scientists, because that's how that goes. But basically what's interesting about that one is that you have a very small deck of cards. You have 9 cards. Each of them is numbered 1 through 9, and each of them has an ability on it. And the abilities are different for your team versus the other team. And basically each turn you're going to both pick one and play it at the same time. And the person with the lower number gets to do their ability, but the person with the higher number gets a bunch of action points that lets you move around and kind of capture or, play against the other person. But the number of action points that you get is your number minus the other person's number. So when you're trying to pick your card, you're trying to either maximize that spread so that you have a bunch of points to do, or you're trying to minimize it so that you can still get your action done and you're not giving the other person a lot of points.
This sounds very good. Is it as good as it seems?
Yeah, and we should totally once we can actually get in a room together as humans, we should do this one night as one of our game night ones. It's pretty aggressive, and so if you and your friend or significant other don't like games where you're eating the other person's players, it may not be the best pick for you, but my wife and I had a lot of fun with that one.
How do you find these?
Obsessively watch board game videos and follow board game websites.
Oh, very helpful. That's nice. Cool. I will definitely check that out.
You will.
Hey, for now, let's try something a little bit surprising. Do the three of you want to clap out?
Sure.
Hey, look at this. We have Griffin Newman from the Blank Check podcast.
Hello.
Not to be outdone by that hack David Sims last week. You insisted on being on.
He's such a hack. I did. I forced my way in here. What, first is the worst, second is the best?
I think that's how it works. Yeah.
And then producer Ben will be the third of our group on this show, and he is objectively the best. He actually makes both of us look dumb, so...
Does he play a lot of games? I don't think I've heard him talk too much about games.
He might be an interesting guest to get on because he was out of video games for a very long time, and he bought a Switch a couple months ago in an attempt to quit smoking. And he says it's been working. He felt like he needed a new addictive habit. So he went from cigarettes to vapes. Then the health dangers of vapes became public. Then he went backwards from vaping to cigarettes again. And then he bought a Switch, and that's become the new thing.
And that's just Stardew Valley on Switch. Yeah, it totally makes sense. So Blank Check, one of my favorite podcasts out there. It's a film podcast. You can check it out if this is your first time hearing about it. Griffin Newman, also Orko from Masters of the Universe. You're going to be doing that voice coming up. That's a weird thing. And then also Arthur from The Tick on Amazon, which I know is a sore subject for you, but some awesome things.
Not a sore subject, a sore subject that it got canceled.
Yes.
Very positive subject. A tender subject? What's the opposite of a sore subject?
It's
a tender subject that I got to do it. And I will say, it does still exist online. There are 22 episodes for people who are stuck at home and haven't watched it yet.
Fantastic.
I'm very proud of that show.
And you're here because you are desperate. Just randy, ready to go to rank the Lego games.
At any time, I'll take any opportunity to talk Lego games. I'm constantly looking for outlets. Most times I try to start this conversation, I'm physically removed from that space. I'm happy to be able to do this digitally where you don't have access to my home. And also I'm actually welcomed with these opinions.
Absolutely. And you're not alone. We're also joined by Graham Goring. Welcome, Graham.
Hello.
Hello. And Graham, you are an expert on Lego video games, and why would that be?
Well, okay, I think expert is overstating it. I used to make them for a living, and I wrote the scripts for a bunch of them. But I was a terrible worker. Like your men actually, play the game so you understand them better, and I'd be like, fuck that. I'm just writing the writing. Can we swear, by the way?
Yeah, go for it. You're fine. You're fine.
Okay, go.
So you were the writer for.
I used to make them for about 8 years.
8 years. So you wrote Lego City Undercover.
Yeah.
Lego Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Lego Jurassic World.
Yeah.
Okay. What are some other hits from you?
We did the Lego Dimensions.
Oh yeah.
And various bits of that. And I feel like there's probably like a Ninjago one in there somewhere.
I'm looking at your IMDb. It says you did the Ninjago movie game and also the first Lego movie game. Are both of those correct?
Okay. But they are correct, yes.
That's perfect. And then you also wrote for Planet Zoo that came out last year, and now you're making your own game?
Yeah, I've been making this game for so long. Yeah, I'm making my own game, and I can't wait for it to look better than it does, and play properly.
Do you have a name for this thing?
It's called Phantom Island, but it turns out that's also the series of young adult books. So I'm going to have to change the bloody name now, which is vexing because I totally had dibs on it because I've been making this game for so bloody long.
Yeah. Okay, but people can find it on your Twitter account, you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, you probably have to search. I should probably, I'll make sure I'll pick up a picture for when this comes out. Then that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. Nice. Okay. All right. Well, we'll plug that at the end. We'll get back to it here. You said, just for the full connection here, because you two don't know each other, correct?
No, I'm pretty starstruck right now. I do have to admit.
Oh, fantastic. There's so much
never met
to
before. We've never interacted before.
You're like a proper star.
No. Once again, show was canceled. Show was very canceled. You wrote 8 Lego games. I only got 2 seasons.
Cancelled.
That is true. Eventually.
That's 22 episodes. That's like 22. I mean, given how long we spend making them, I mean, you've made like 17 Lego games because we churn those out.
Very easy to make, right? They each take like a week.
Yeah, basically, and the rest of the time we just got our thumb up our asses. That is not true. I feel like I should apologise to my old employees because I may need to go back to them if this whole indie dev thing doesn't work out.
I get it, man. You said at some point that you worked with Peter Serafinowicz, who's the Tick?
Oh, yeah. Yes, he worked on several of them, right? I know he was on Undercover.
Yeah.
And then, you didn't work on Lego Marvel Superheroes too, right?
No.
Because he's the main villain in that. Yes.
Oh, really? Oh, that's cool.
Yes.
Yeah, but I imagine he joined because he enjoyed the experience working with me, and then they suckered him in to one of the other companies' project. I say the other company because TT's kind of split into 2. There's like TT Fusion and there's TT Games. And it's like the whole Infinity Ward Treyarch thing. Do you remember when everyone would be like, yay, it's Infinity Ward, or boo, it's Treyarch with the Call of Duties? So Lego's like that, except both companies think the other one is Treyarch. That's how it works.
Wow. I'm all the way here for this gossip because I've never been able to find this kind of info. But I'm
so professional.
Yeah.
I think my NDA doesn't cover this.
No, because like Serafinowicz has been in so many things that people love. He has such like a diverse career, and it's touched into so many different fandoms because he's been part of like Star Wars and the MCU and all these different corners of animation and the Edgar Wright stuff and all of that. And it was just always the thing I asked him the most questions about was the Lego games, and he would be like, "Are you fucking serious?" Like on downtime, because I also knew he played them. And his son was really into Lego. And he's like, yeah, I know about all this because my son's into it. But my son is 1/4 of your age. Why are
you? Isn't he also isn't he super into Dark Souls too?
He's like a hardcore gamer. He's like a really, really hardcore gamer. He plays very, very seriously. And he was always trying to get me to play games with him. And especially when I'm working, and especially at a time like the Tick when I was working a lot, I was very lucky to be very busy. The Lego games are my ultimate unwind thing. I find that I really go to them mostly when I'm busy or a time like this when I'm trying to keep my mind busy.
Yeah.
But they're the perfect level of stimulation and relaxation.
It has to like go back to probably the first Star Wars game then, right? Like that's really what roped you in? Or is it the movie connection specifically that you're attracted to here?
Yes, I do think the entry point was probably the movie thing. That it was like, these are movie games. And I'm trying to think when I got in because the first 2 Star Wars games came out for PS2.
Yeah.
I did not start playing them until PS3, at which point they reissued the first 2 Star Wars games as one disc. It was the complete saga. But I feel like it was, what year would it have been? 2010. I got mono. I don't want to brag, but I got mono from kissing a male friend during an improv scene. So then I spent several months, I had to move back in with my parents, and I spent several months in bed, and then that's when I really got into the Lego games. I feel like it was around that time. Maybe Lego Batman was the entry point for me, but it was Lego Batman, Lego Star Wars, Lego Indiana Jones. The first of each of those were the 3 I got into all around the same time. Maybe one of them I played pre-mono. But I do think it was that thing of like, at that time still, proportionately, most tie-in games were really bad. Especially movie tie-in games were kind of like at their tail end before they pretty much got killed off.
Yeah.
And it was like, they had already been out for a little while, and I kept on hearing that they were good, and I was like, really? Those things are good? Like, in theory, I should be on board. I like Batman, I like Lego, I like Star Wars, but it just felt so odd to me, and that when I finally got to the pool, I was like, this is what I want tie-in games to be, in terms of, like, the balance of reverence to the intellectual property while also being able to take the piss out of it a little bit. Which felt kind of revolutionary at the time, and I have a whole theory on how that impacted the rest of media for the next 10 years. But then also, it's like they felt like these are the kind of classic platformers that I want to play that feel rarer and rarer to find these days.
Yeah, where they all have puzzles in it, but a developer once called them nuzzles to me of not a puzzle. It's just, they're not puzzles. It's just two things you kind of have to put together that slow you down a little bit, you know?
But that is exactly what I want. Yeah. I want that sort of variation of gameplay. None of it's too challenging. I don't feel like a moron, you know? Like, where I'm like, why can't I figure this out? I'm like, everything is just taxing me enough.
Yeah, Graham, that's what you're going for, is just people who love the film industry that are stuck in bed with mono. That's the ideal target for the games you're making?
That and beleaguered parents, I would say.
Yeah,
really,
okay.
It's
smart.
Because they always get roped in to help. I mean, I've got a kid, he's only 2 at the moment, and at some point I'm going to be playing through all the old Lego games with him, which is kind of nice.
Oh, it's going to be surreal. So is Lego City Undercover the crowning point of your game development career? Or what would you say is the
and it's really annoying that it was like the first one. It was just like... Because it was the only one where I had like complete freedom pretty much, because there was no IP attached to it. And though it's amazing to do like a Star Wars game, it's you're still, there's certain constraints. You can't go completely batshit with it.
Yeah, but you're able to like slip in some weird jokes. I'm trying to remember, there was like Wookiee cookies. Like you slipped in a lot of new weird stuff into Star Wars lore with Force Awakens there.
Yeah, it's weird because I don't know whether it's like proper. Like I don't think it is canon, but some people saying, well, maybe it is. But I don't know. It is. It was amazing that I got to like name characters, and it's just a case of just mash a keyboard and say, that looks kind of like a name.
Star Wars, yeah, we get it.
Well, that do. So that's really awesome. Just playing in all of those different IPs is really, really cool. But yeah, City Undercover, it was just great because we had ages to make it as well. We had like 3 years to make it, which is crazy. So
was that just because you weren't sort of tied into release schedules of things? Was that the main freedom there?
I think it was probably like we basically were coming up to release, and then sort of Nintendo were like, well, we'd like it on on the Wii U, and we were like, can we have a Wii U, please? And I think that's pretty much how it shook out because it was not ready to release, and then we got an extra year, and then it was ready to release, so that was handy. But yeah, it was just also because we'd never done anything like that before. We'd never done like a free roaming big world, so there was loads of technological challenges that needed answering. So
yeah, and it was hard. I'm trying to remember.
There was a lot of R&D.
Yeah, it was like I think the middle of the city you couldn't quite go to, but still everything around the side. But obviously Portal 2 Hall of Fame, but I still think Lego City Undercover might be the funniest game I've ever played. I think it's still top of the pile.
Wow.
I'm serious. Have you played that one, Griffin?
I'm gonna make my shameful confession now. I just in the last week got Undercover and Ninjago. Before we planned to do this podcast, I got those 2 as like the 2 I hadn't played yet. So I have them in my Switch pile now, and I'm just launching into them.
Oh, good.
Ninjago's like the one that I left halfway through. So
then I'll only play half of it. I'll play half of it.
First half, and then just it off.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Griffin, what's your grand theory about the impact of these Lego games?
Well, so I think there's something interesting to these games being the sort of beginning of like the outsider-insider treatment of these very holy IPs. Because it used to be, I feel like Lego Star Wars, where there's the weird bridge from like Star Wars is the first licensed property that Lego does, which then leads to Lego's identity somewhat changing to being, half depicting other things that people have created and half making their own stuff. But Lego up until that point did not have that much of a comedic voice, certainly. And I feel like when Lego would make TV shows or they would make video games, they would be kind of very earnest and very straightforward. And Lego Star Wars is kind of the first time where there's a Lego comedic sensibility, which is sort of treating things through the mind's eye of a child in a certain way. It's like you're doing the official Mad Magazine parody of the thing.
Yeah.
You know? So when you start in those early games, like the first Batman and the first Star Wars and all of that, where there's no dialogue, all of that is just sort of done through pantomime, which I think gave them a lot of latitude because there was only so much they could kind of like, not mock the thing, you know, but satirize the thing, because a lot of it was just sort of physically deflating the pomposity of moments or the seriousness of moments.
Like
Amidala
dying.
Fall apart.
Yeah.
Right. Things like that. You could always throw in some physical humor or whatever. But as the games became more complex and added their own dialogue, and especially as they started getting legitimate people to voice those parts, it really becomes this thing where it's like, this is an official parody. This is like the one outlet where these big companies are allowing another company to have creative free reign with the thing. It happens even before like the those Robot Chicken like Star Wars specials start happening, which I feel like is like all of this is like the tightening of the George Lucas grasp on I will allow people to make fun of my thing and put the official stamp on it.
Star Wars detours and that nonsense.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it extends to all these other companies that also allow Disney and Warner Brothers and all these places. And then the apex of it is the Lego movie, which I think wouldn't have a sensibility if not for the games. You know, as much as Lord Miller bringing their thing to it, I don't think that movie would know what it was. I don't think there would even be a starting point in terms of what the sense of humor of Lego was if the games hadn't already set that up to some degree. And then that becomes, well, because Lego already is this property that has all these official licenses and they allow us to make fun of them, then why wouldn't they allow us to do that in the movie? So it felt sort of like revolutionary in that movie when you suddenly have Batman as a proper character, and it's a parody of Batman, but it's an official Batman coexisting with all these other characters. And now I feel like we're living in a landscape where that's happening all. You know, where things like the second Wreck-It Ralph movie having all the Disney princesses in it and being like, they all coexist, they're mocking what their own tropes are. We don't have to worry about whether this is canon with those movies or not, you know? And even to like a crazy degree, something like The Joker, I think comes out of like the long tail result of these places being like, we don't have to treat every depiction of these characters as the important canonical version. We can allow multiple versions to exist, and those versions can both be the sillier ones, the ones for kids, the ones that satirize, the ones that are funny, the ones that are more earnest, but also can allow you to do the weird R-rated Joker movie. Yeah. I think there's like, this is my grand unifying theory, that there's like a 20-year tail that leads to these studios treating these big IPs as a little bit more of a public resource and a little bit less as like the holy scripture. And it starts to become like, this is a play, and every time you stage a play, you get some authorship over it. You can put it in a new setting, actors get their own interpretation of it. And I think the Lego games are the thing that kind of broke that.
Yeah, and so Graham, is it John Burton from TT Games was the executive producer on the Lego movie?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, he's like a big Hollywood producer. It's weird because he's that, and he also has his funny little YouTube channel where he goes about how he did coding on the Mega Drive and stuff like that. But I think he'd be really chuffed with this theory that effectively he's like the granddaddy of it all. I think we'd like that.
What do you think of that, Graham?
Do you know what? It holds up. I mean, I can't poke holes in that, and it is totally true that I think it was Lego were the first little plastic thing that got to kind of play with other people's IPs, and where you have this one thing, and I think it's I do think that Lego might not even be around were it not for the Lego games now, because I think they had a massive resurgence in popularity. It really worked out well for everyone, but I'm totally down with that, because I can't think of anything from around 2000 that did the same thing. And now, they're happy to really splash their IPs around like mad.
Well, it is like the fact that Lego has this unifying style. That everything's adapted into the same scale with the same number of pieces is a thing that then like transmutes to Funkos and all of these things, where the idea is to have all these characters exist in sort of a uniform look. So that becomes this great equalizer between all of these properties. And then also there's the fact that, like, as you said, when the games start, it was the moment when Lego was kind of on the verge of bankruptcy. So then the games taking off allows Lego to take their cues as a company from the games. And I feel like everything then becomes reverse engineered, even in terms of how they marketed the toys and all that sort of stuff. And then when they made their own original IP, when they start doing their own shows and everything, again, it becomes like, this is now the house style. This is like the sensibility of what Lego is. And it is, like, as we were saying, the tie-in games were so bad at the time. And as such a big movie fan, I have often been such a bad gamer. Because outside of, like, classic sort of Nintendo platformers and the like, as a kid, the things I was drawn to was always, what are the games based off the movies I like? Mm-hmm. And people would tell me, like, those are usually the bad games. Like, that's not what you should be going for. And I was like, no, I want to play with the characters I like. Yeah. Like, that's what I look for. And even as I got older, it was still that impulse where I would, like, text my brother, who was a bigger gamer, and be like, is this one good? And he'd be like, no, none of the movie games are good.
But Lost World on PlayStation 1, that one must be great, right?
Right, yeah. Right. But those are, like, the first movie games that felt like they had some real creative freedom within them, you know, because the job wasn't, as we're saying, it wasn't like you have to be the perfect official game of this thing. Yeah. It became you are a game of this thing. And that freedom changes everything.
I think it really helps that, you know, obviously they didn't have to do day and date releases back then for those things. Yeah. They weren't tying it into a particular thing most of the time, because day and date is what kills so many projects.
Oh, well, like, the Force Awakens game was that came out a little after the movie, right?
About 6 months, yeah.
Was that a nightmare trying to tie those two things together?
Not particularly, because I think it came out with the DVD release. So that was handy. And also, it gave us, you know, and then the people making the game could go and actually to the cinema and find out what half the things they were meant to be building looked like. so that was handy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember being at the studio for Game Informer when I was there. We went on a cover story trip and met Graham on that trip for doing that game on the cover. And that was the crazy thing, is somebody's like, I remember seeing these models in the game of like, okay, we had to make the AT-AT, and it's like, okay, so Lucasfilm, like, sent you the art then, like, no, we're just looking at that scene where it's like Hux giving his speech. You can kind of see like 12 pixels in the background that I guess is an AT-AT, and that's what they had to design this complete interior off of. It was bonkers.
Wow. Yeah. It's almost like that old thing about blind people touching different parts of an elephant and trying to figure out what it all looks like.
Yeah. So what were you going off of, Graham? Like, was it just whispers of the script, or when you're writing that thing, what's that like?
Yeah, I mean, like, I still can't say due to NDA exactly what we got, but it was, yeah, I mean, like, they gave us easily enough to make the game from my standpoint. And the good thing was that we could always send the script over to Lucas, and they would say, no, that's wrong, that's right, etc., which was really, really useful. But I had a way easier time than anyone, because all I needed to know was, you know, what happened in the movie as opposed to what things look exactly like. So yeah, I was lucky. Plus, you know, we had all these levels that were based on stuff that was, you know, other movies, these little side stories. So, you know, if people sort of were up against it, you could always do work on those until you could go to the cinema and find out what the hell things look like.
Yeah, and now you don't have to reveal any secrets, but the early versions of the Force Awakens script that you got whispers of, was it pretty different from the final one? Was there a lot of stuff in there where it's like, wait, Rey's vision is what now?
No, not at all. Really, you know, what you saw. I mean, I think there was like the snowspeeder chase was the only thing that everyone knows about that went missing.
Yeah.
And I think like the idea that Uncle Plutt was going to meet them later on and get his arm ripped off. Right,
because that's still in the game, right? That's the one place that remains in the story, or am I misremembering that?
Do you know what? It might be, because it may have been the case that it was in there, and we're like, well, it's kind of too late to take it out. And we've animated it and everything.
I feel like Lego Chewbacca rips off Lego Unkar Plutt's arms.
I think you're
in
right.
the game.
You might. I feel like you might.
At Maz's Cantina. I remember that.
Yeah. So the idea of
I think you're right.
the official parody of the thing, like Griffin was talking about, like, what are the limits that you found for that, Graham? Could you just, like, did you find the comedic limits of Star Wars within Star Wars?
Literally, the only joke I think I had pushback on, there was this one where you're there's a mission where you're trying to save some people who are in another ship who effectively are arms dealers, and then and I had a joke like, when you save them, go, yeah, now let's go and sell these weapons to propagate a war that's going to result in loads of death, effectively. And they were like, no. And that was literally the only thing I got pushback on. And everything else.
And then
they were
Last Jedi essentially makes that text.
Oh yeah, it kind of
Not
does.
as a joke, but there's the scene where they're like, by the way, you understand that this is all run by arms dealers, right?
Yeah. Do you know what? They definitely stole that from me then.
Yeah, you deserve credit.
Yeah. Griffin, when you're playing these Lego games...
I'll check the credits. Maybe I'm in them.
Yeah.
When you're playing these Lego games, do you want to write them yourselves? Like, what do you think about the writing overall? What stands out to you? Are you jealous? Are you happy?
I do think about that. I mean, as I made the already, but it reminds me so much of a Mad magazine, which I was so obsessive with as a kid, and that sort of approach of, their movie parodies would come like 6 or 8 months later because of the delays of publishing or what have you. And it would always be that sort of thing of like going scene by scene and trying to figure out what's the funniest thing to riff on in each scene. You're not tackling a parody in like a Mel Brooks way, where you're parodying the entire concept of the movie and changing all the characters. It was like you're changing each character name, and then each scene you're figuring out what's the funniest reversal that could happen here. And that game is always really fun to play. So even like something like Force Awakens, where like I saw it in theaters and then knew the game was going to come out in 6 months, I do feel like I was noodling in my head of like, what are they going to do with this? I think the thing I get most jealous of is like, when I play the ones like the Marvel game or the Batman games now, where they're not connected to a cinematic universe, so they can cast any actor in any of these parts, I'm like, what do I have to do to play one of 800 characters that you can unlock? I'm like, there's so many characters in these things. I understand I'm not going to make Star Wars because they're using the real actors. There has to be some like 8th tier Legion of Superheroes character that I can voice in Lego form.
Yeah, they cast.
That's my real jealousy.
I think Greg Miller was in Lego Batman 3. Like, if he's making the cut, Christ, doors open.
Yeah, totally.
I would just say pitch your day rate very low, and
as far as I'm concerned, I don't have a day rate. I mean, maybe my agent would disagree with this, but I feel like I'm always saying to them, like, can we find anything here?
Graham, with stuff like Lego Jurassic World, it's so fascinating. It's like, I love Jurassic Park in particular, but I guess the entire Jurassic series. And it's just that weird thing of like, when you're using clips from the movie, do you ever worry about it being too jarring then when you're writing your own dialogue? Because it's like, okay, especially when like some of that audio quality for some of the Jurassic stuff in the game was like a little rough. And it's like, and now here's a pristine audio quality joke from a character on the side. Like, it makes that weird disconnect that's tough to avoid because you want to have fun.
Do you know what the weird thing is with that one? I wasn't involved in the cutscenes at all, because like we had like this really good cutscene department. They basically just took the lead completely on that, and then I was just writing all the in-game stuff. The audio quality thing was a bit of a not ideal, but so it didn't affect me. I just wrote my stuff and trusted that it would all kind of join up vaguely well.
Yeah. When you look back on that project, what do you think of? What stands out from that one?
It was fun. Do you know, working with the actors doing the VO sessions was really nice, actually. Just, it's always surprising when you work with like, A-listers and stuff like that, a lot of them are gamers and they're totally into it and really happy to do this stuff. That's always kind of surprising. Getting to, direct them occasionally when, they were scheduling snafus, basically, was great.
Yeah. Does it feel like, because I think a lot of people from the outside would be like, oh man, just to work with Star Wars or work with Jurassic World as a license for, I mean, how long would you spend on that? I mean, a year and a half?
Year and a half, about that.
Okay, it's like, that seems like a dream, but does it just boil down to a job? And most of the time, you're just sitting at your desk typing jokes or trying to figure out a spreadsheet, right? You're not actually feel like you're soaking in the world of Jurassic Park?
You're absolutely right. I mean, to be honest with you, pretty much every single IP that we worked on, I was fairly well immersed in anyway. There wasn't much that I had to familiarize myself with, so it was all, known quantity. But yeah, it's kind of like, I wouldn't feel it was that I was doing anything particularly special, but literally 2 desks over, someone's like, sorry, you get to go on a Skype call with, Chris Pratt or or one of the other actors, and they would be like, "You're so lucky." But I was just worried about getting the damn dialogue in the game. To be honest, writing something on a Monday and getting it recorded on a Friday was, please don't have too many f***ups in the spelling. That's all I was hoping for.
Yeah.
Can I ask potentially a dumb question, because I just don't know here, and I'm very curious to how this process works. How much of your job is writing the dialogue versus figuring out how to adapt the scenes from the thing into game form?
For me, I don't have to do any of that adaptation. That was the cutscene thing. They would do that. I would just be writing dialogue, writing jokes, coming up with enough background character lines, and just barks and stuff like that. And then it's a case of effectively wrangling that dialogue into a spreadsheet, making sure that everything's correct, and getting those documents over for the recording, making sure I can attend the recording so I can answer any questions they have, and then getting that pooping that data into the game. Basically, it was a lot of technical stuff, and occasionally setting up camera rigs and stuff like that for cutscenes on some of the handheld versions of the games.
Oh,
so
wow.
it was mostly technical, and then writing dumb jokes.
Yeah. Did the just rotation and just how many games you're cranking out, did you just get a little fried, or why'd you end up leaving?
Well, part of the reason was that basically when I met my wife, we both owned houses, and so I sold my house and paid off a mortgage, and we had some money. So I was like, well, I'd really like to make a game, and she was very supportive of that, and still is, which is a miracle. She is an angel. But yeah, I mean, there's only so many times you can write, "Oh no, more bad guys! Look out, more bad guys! Oh, some bad guys have arrived!" And
I think that's the last of them.
What I would do to recite that dialogue? You're the words I wish I could say.
I mean, it's Shakespeare. It's just because of the English accent, really.
Right.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. What IP do you want to see turn into a Lego game, Griffin?
Oh boy, that's a good question. I'll tell you what for me was a big missed opportunity. They did. No, this one irked me, and I feel like I tweeted about it a lot. I didn't think I had any power to change anything, but I needed to vent my frustration to the world. They did Lego Incredibles, which was just based off of the 2 movies. And historically, most of the Lego video games have been franchises that have like 3 or 4 entries. There's a little bit more of a saga to cover. With Lego Incredibles, it felt like they were cutting things a little bit thin. And especially when you get to the Lego Incredibles 2 section of it, that script I have heard went through a lot of changes up until the very last minute.
Yeah.
And the game section of the Lego Incredibles, of Incredibles 2, feels like they didn't really know what they were working with to some degree. And I was like, what I want to see is some Lego Pixar volume. Like, not that they could fit all 20 into one game.
Yeah.
But I would love to see a game where they throw a couple of them in here, and then that allows it to become a new franchise that can keep on going like their other perennials have. Didn't happen. And then even Toy Story 4 came out last year, which is my favorite franchise, Toy Story. They had a line of Lego Toy Story toys, and I was hoping there was going to be a game. You got 4 movies there. There was nothing. So I would say Lego Toy Story, my ultimate game dream, but also I would like to see some sort of anthology Pixar where you could get like some monsters, some Nemo, a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
That seems like a perfect fit as well.
Right? That's why I was tweeting about this, because I was like, I need the validation of the fact that my idea makes sense.
It does, but at the same time, like, having that Lego Pixar on the shelf, fine. You pay $60, you get it. But you get Lego Incredibles, you get Lego Toy Story, which I won't look at Graham, but I assume at some point Lego Toy Story is going to come out. That's going to be the 4 films.
It's inevitable.
Yeah, they can milk it. Why bundle it up? You don't need to do some confusing...
Sure. I guess bundle it up with the things that only have 1 movie.
Okay, yes.
You know?
Yeah, what's your take on that, Graham? Is that just like too many different art assets? Is that too tricky systems-wise to pack together?
It depends. I would say what it depends is if you can get most of the characters to fit into it like a minifig form. Because if you can't, because if they're too radically different to a minifig, that means they've all got to have custom fucking rigs. And that just explodes the amount of animation that needs to be done.
Yeah. So
obviously the great thing about Lego games is that effectively you might have 200 characters, but maybe there's like 3 rigs. So it's like that is some good efficiency right there. So it would depend if they could get that to do. But there's probably plenty of movies where they do have enough, like humanoid characters that you could totally do that. But
Yeah.
But Finding Nemo, Lego Finding Nemo, I can't see that how that
little rocky.
Yeah. I'd imagine you saw like the Lego Mario set, Graham, and your brain melted thinking about how that would possibly pack into a video game like that.
That'd be really cool because we got to do like a few little Mario bits in the original release of City Undercover.
Yeah.
And that was really cute. But yeah, I really like the look of that set. I mean, I'm not going to buy it. I'm not made of money. I mean, there's a pandemic going on. But it does look cool.
But yeah, my pitch, I hate doing this. Like back when I was at Game Informer and talking to devs, like the worst thing is when you'd hear another journalist try and pitch a game or a feature for a game. But I made an exception for one case, which was talking to Arthur Parsons over there from TT Games. And I was like, you don't even need to license anything. The greatest layup in history in terms of sales for this stuff, make Lego Old Testament. Think about, now maybe it's just, over there in England, they're like, I don't know, the Bible? Griffin, seriously, how many people in America would buy Lego Old Testament? That thing would fly off the shelves, right?
I mean, some have called it the greatest story ever told. I think there's a good argument. It's maybe the most epic saga, the only saga that could beat Star Wars in an arm wrestling match.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it seems like a slam dunk. A lot of characters.
Yes.
A lot of big set pieces.
Hilarious. Yeah.
Challenges, puzzles, tests.
Circumcisions.
Yeah.
What else do you need?
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, we are godless infidels over here. That may be why it didn't fly.
That could be it. Yeah, Arthur looked at me like I was fucking nuts, but yeah.
Here's the thing, though. They made that super, what was it, Noah's Ark game for the SNES, like first-person shooter thing. So why the hell not?
Yeah.
I mean, and also, you don't have to pay for the IP.
Right.
Yeah, I really think so. It's like VeggieTales can do it. They can be, quirky with that, and they make a gazillion dollars. Yeah, I feel like, it's right there. Okay, Griffin, do you want to actually rank these things, your favorites?
Okay, yeah. So what are we? Give me some confines for the ranking.
Well, what
do we want to do, like a top 10? Like, what do we want to do here?
I think we go like a little bit like we did with David Sims here last week, where it's just the most fun ones to play now.
Okay.
You can't be like, oh, well, I really loved it back in the day for this reason. Just what you think holds up the best, and as many as you want to rank, as many as you feel comfortable with.
Okay. It's weird. I don't know if it's just like it lodged in my brain. It's the one I get stuck on. But there's something about, in particular, Lego Indiana Jones 2 that I always come back to. I think there's something about the Indiana Jones world. It's a little bit similar to the Jurassic World, which I think also translated really well, where it's a little closer to the world we know, with weird elements in it, as opposed to Star Wars or Batman or whatever, which are all just kind of wackadoo. And I love those on their own, but there's something about Lego as an entry point to those. And I also think, because the first Lego Indiana Jones came out, I think, right before Crystal Skull. So when they announced the second one, everyone went, it's just going to be a Crystal Skull game, which seemed very unappealing.
Yeah.
But the secret of Indiana Jones 2 is it's like a remake of the first 3 films and also the Crystal Skull levels. And I think it benefits from the approach of getting to revisit the original trilogy again, having gone through the game one time. It picks different scenes to dramatize, different sort of play structures. I don't know. It's not even like that's probably... I like Indiana Jones. It is on the lower end in terms of my fandom for the properties that Lego's cover. But for whatever reason, that game is like a really, really good balance. I
love that you chose that one too, because I think the first time I visited Traveler's Tales for the Lego Marvel Superheroes cover, I think we asked them like what the developer's favorite game was from the Lego series, and a lot of them picked that. So like we think it's the unsung hero of the Lego games, because I think it was the only one that had online co-op, or the only one in that era that had online co-op, and there are a lot of other kind of features that they experimented with back in that time, and just having that ability to like iterate so quickly and just do the trilogy again. I feel like everybody feels like, it's like basically a sequel, except we just get to recreate the same stuff and make it better and better. And so that seems like a lot of developers' favorites.
It feels like it benefits from the improvement. There's a lot of weird like experimenting like that. Like there's a level building feature as well. Yeah. There's all this stuff in it that feels really kind of like people being able to stretch their arms and try some new stuff. And I also just like I like the Lego game mechanic of different characters having different specialties. I mean, it's like my joy at realizing Luigi could jump a little bit higher as a child. The way the Lego games take that to like the nth degree, I love like, oh, this Lego Indiana Jones character has a book, which means they can solve puzzles. Like any of those sort of mechanics, I'm all on board with.
Yeah.
Okay, the number 2, I would say, I'm looking at the list here. Well, this is one I played recently that I was very impressed with. They did the re-release of the 2 Harry Potter games, which were earlier remade for the next-gen consoles. And there's something about Harry Potter that works really, really well in the Lego format because of the spells. Collecting spells as new skills. And even though certain characters have certain specialties, you also just being able to cycle between them, it makes every element of the game that same kind of very basic muzzle solving. Because anything you come up against, you're trying to figure out which thing you already have in your little rotation is the thing to apply here. Good breadth of characters, good number of movies and stories. That's still in the zone where you're getting it's pantomime. You're not getting the dialogue.
Yeah.
So it's the goofier version of it as opposed to the epic version of it. But I just think the gameplay works really, really well there.
That was actually one of the first ones where they had like a proper physics engine as well. So the destruction was way better than any of the previous games. So
that makes a lot of sense. It's the size of it feels really big. I mean, even just being able to walk around Hogwarts as the hub in between levels, the sort of exploring in that feels the best. Now, I swear to God, I'm not just saying this to butter up the other person who is on this call with us, but I think Force Awakens is the best of the Lego games. I think far and away. I think it benefits in that Indiana Jones style of being able to revisit the earlier films, in addition to being able to apply everything that the team has learned to the new film, and also that you get the actual actor voices, that it feels a little more substantive in that way. I like all the sort of appendix stuff. There's the level based off of that prequel comic about how C-3PO gets the red arm.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a very all-encompassing game, and it's not fair to hold this against it. But the only thing I resent with Force Awakens was it made me think, okay, they're going to make a new game for each individual entry in the Disney era, and then they will also use that game to revisit some of the previous things. Now I know there's the complete Skywalker saga game that's coming out. But at the time, I thought a game just for Force Awakens, I don't know, like Incredibles, is it slicing it too thin? I felt like it was a good vehicle to be able to tackle so many different elements of Star Wars that I'm a little disappointed that then it was held off for the all-encompassing game.
Yeah, and Graham winched like that wasn't always the plan. And then his camera actually shut off.
Oh, boy.
Hang on, you still over there, Graham?
I feel like we were about to get some really good scoops. It looked like he was like biting his lip.
Yeah, he really
waiting
was.
to weigh in. The camera went off, for the listener at home, I mean, literally went off the second I stopped talking.
I heard a quick blaster shot too. It's really bizarre. But...
A blunderbuss, yes.
Anyways, I guess he can try and figure that out. Do you have more on your list? Other favorites?
I do. Lego Marvel Superheroes 2.
Second one.
Which is the most recent one. Because there's Lego Marvel Superheroes, then there was Lego Avengers, which is kind of unofficially MCU. It's more MCU influenced. And Lego Marvel Superheroes 2 is the direct sequel to the first one, which is just in kind of wackadoo Lego Marvel comics land, where you're allowed to have everything mash up. I think it's the one with the best narrative. It is the one where it feels like the team was able to write a really unique story, because it's all about King the Conqueror causing this time rift, and so you're dealing with alternate versions of the Marvel universe. So you have sort of the Spider-Man noir universe, and the sort of medieval universe. And going to different planets and all this sort of stuff. It feels like, to me, what I want. Is he totally gone now?
I think it might be restarting. Let's just wait for him to come back here.
Sure.
Hey, in the meantime, what do you think about... Oh, never mind. No time for that. He's coming back. Maybe. He's got to turn his camera
Sorry about that.
Are you back? Are you alive?
Yeah, I'm live. There we go.
There we go.
Who got to you?
Sorry about that. Good technology.
Sorry, what were you going to ask you? Oh, about Force Awakens. Oh, but like the bonus stuff in the Force Awakens game. Like I think of, this is such a weird specific thing, but somehow I ended up meeting Anthony Daniels in Las Vegas, like as he was on his way out to record like the final bit of mop-up VO for Force Awakens, the film. And I said like, and the movie wasn't out yet. And I was like, oh my God, C-3PO's red arm. That thing looks crazy in the trailers or whatever. And he's like, oh, that red arm. And he complained about how much he hated the red arm for a while. So I'm curious, did you like record dialogue with him all about his journey to get the red arm then?
Yeah, no, I've got I got a photo of me with him in the recording studio. He was lovely. It was really good fun because we'd meet before the actual recording sessions to basically, because he kind of has ownership of that character.
Yeah.
And we'd basically meet before the recording sessions and basically go over the script and say, well, we could make this, a bit more flowery. It's not rain, it's precipitation, stuff like that. We'd sort of just punch up the scripts, me and him together, because he nobody knows the voice of C-3PO like Anthony Daniels.
Yeah.
I think he's still got his phone number somewhere. We could totally prank call him.
Oh my God, that'd be great. Did you have any big takeaways about how he sees the character that was different from what you're expecting or anything like that?
No, not really. No, not really, because he was actually surprisingly really, really happy with what I'd written, and which was a surprise. I mean, I felt I captured the voice fairly well, but he was a joy to work with. It was really good fun.
Oh, I'm curious, are there any other actors you worked with who were similarly protective of the characters? Like, was there anyone else you were surprised where they kind of came in and said, like, I don't think I would say it this way, or this is the core of the thing for me, or any of that?
Do you know what? I didn't have that at all.
Really?
They would. I think because they appreciated, they got the fact that it's Lego Star Wars, and therefore there is more latitude with that. So they were totally down with it. We did some really stupid announcement stuff with Jawarhello, with Donald Gleason, and he was totally down with that. His only issue was that he was told he was coming in to do 10 lines, and I'd written about 40. And I was like, so everyone was just it was really lovely, and getting to meet people like Simon Peck and Gwendolyn Christie and all that.
Yeah.
And, they were all just a laugh.
Wait, didn't you guys get Harrison Ford too?
Yeah.
How the hell did that work?
How the hell did that work?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming a truck full of money is how that works. I mean, I feel like NDAs, but do the math. But my favourite one is actually Carrie Fisher was so lovely to work with as well, and her dog was with her, and it would constantly ruin takes because her dog would be just like shaking its leash and stuff like that. So.
But everybody's too scared to be like, hey, Carrie, could you just put the dog just 10 feet away? Do you have to be holding it while delivering these lines?
I love that. The dog was it was non-negotiable. If you get me, the dog is in my arms on my...
It's amazing she wasn't holding the dog in the film itself at all times.
She's, that's Gary. That was his name, the dog. Gary Fisher. It was just really lovely sessions with them.
That's so sweet. Do you miss working on the Lego games?
Yeah, I miss having a salary. I do. Do you know what? I mean, they were the most incredible transformative time for me, because I wasn't a writer really before I started on those. Basically, I got my job just because I was doing stand-up, and someone saw me doing it who was high up at the company and was like, well, he works for us. That will be cheaper than hiring a proper writer.
Oh, wow.
That's crazy. So you were already working there, and then simultaneously were moonlighting as a stand-up, and then they unified the two things and said, you should write jokes for us. Wow. Yeah,
basically, because so they had another person who was writing Lego City Undercover, but it wasn't really working out, and they were like, well, we've seen you've done stand-up, and someone high up called Jonathan Smith had saw me doing it and was like, we'll give him a try. And just it worked out from there, really.
That's awesome. Well, hey, this has gone long, but Griffin, do you have any other burning questions about the Lego series or anything else you want to get off your chest here?
Oh man, I mean, this is like too big of a prompt. I'm like the kid in the candy store now. What do I ask? Oh boy. Are there any, just because I'm a big collector, not of Lego specifically, although I do have Legos, but just of everything in general, and certainly things I've worked on. Are there any cool sort of mementos you have from your experience working at Lego, or freebies? Oh my God, he's reaching off camera for something.
Yeah, hang on.
Please just be a stud the size of his head.
Oh,
It's a great tour of his shelves.
Okay. Right, so basically, whenever you complete a project, you would get a Lego block with a minifigure in it, and you get to choose it. So I've got about 9 of those in a drawer. Hang on, we're going on the trip.
Yes.
Please take us with. Please.
Okay, where are you?
Okay, for the audio listeners, he's rummaging through his mansion, all impeccably organized.
I'm really hoping I did not sell these on eBay.
I know you want to make that game happen, man.
I definitely did not. Hang on. Here we are. So whenever you do a project, you would get a character from it.
Yeah, so it looks like it's like in Lucite. It's like a little like trophy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got like a dozen of these from all the different games I worked on. So yeah, that's what I would say is probably the a really lovely takeaway, because these things, they cost like 50 quid each to make. They are not cheap, and everyone who worked on the game would get one.
That's awesome. That's super nice.
I got Doctor Who, which is my favourite.
That's so sweet. Oh, did you get to rate him for Dimensions?
Yeah.
Oh my god!
So that was, to be honest, that was the IP I was most looking forward to, because I've always been a big Doctor Who fan. So that was really lovely.
Yeah, and Dimensions overall, did they assign it with just different characters, different worlds? Like, which characters did you write on for Dimensions? Because that's a mind-boggling project.
Everything, pretty much, yeah. Because I was just just lead writer, so pretty much every single thing I either did a pass on or was just in charge of writing fully.
So you were the person that wrote, if you had Bart Simpson and Sonic in the party together, you wrote the take it reference?
No, the Simpsons stuff, because I think they were all like using voice clips from the show rather than actual new recordings.
Yeah.
So that was all done. Again, that was all handled by the cutscene team, actually.
Oh.
And a lot of the in-game stuff they also was handled by other people, but all the cutscenes was me, and like the Doctor Who level, I did all the cutscenes for that as well, and a few others. But yeah.
Oh, that's so wild. Anyways, what I was going to ask you, Griffin, is just about the idea of the coronavirus shutting everybody down, all film production down. Do you think it could have an effect, much like at least the story they tell of Force Awakens, of like when Harrison Ford broke his leg, and they kind of had time to stop and reassess and kind of review the script, review what they had so far. Do you think that can have a similar effect for movies in production now, like Jurassic World 3? Do you think it'll give them time to breathe and maybe make it better?
That's my hope. I mean, that kind of thing doesn't always work, but in general, there's that sort of axiom about film production. It's like a pie chart, and you only get 2 out of 3, and it's time, freedom, and money. And usually people pick to throw time by the wayside. And these days it feels like the studios just throw time by the wayside. They go, that's not even on the table.
Yeah.
But it is, I think, almost always a benefit to be able to have some time to process things, to step back, look at how things are coming together. The new Batman movie, I mean, there are a lot of them now are just kind of like frozen. I want to believe that's the silver lining here. There's also a point where if the gap goes on too long, you wonder if they get out of the flow of things. It's always a weird thing. Like, as an actor, I would always sort of dread having to do reshoots, even though in a way it's like, oh, here's a second chance to make something better, and almost always that is what comes as an end result of that. There's something like, you feel so vulnerable that when you're making the thing, that when they ask you to do it a second time, it's like double painful. It's like poking a wound that's just starting to heal, whether or not you have regrets about how it was done the first time. So I think the ideal is the gap goes on long enough that everyone is longing long enough to get back on set, that when they come back to it with the thought they put into it, everyone has completely field tested their side of the thing in the minds, and we'll get like a solid year run where every blockbuster is a masterpiece. That's my very idealistic prediction.
Yep, lock it in. It's going to happen. Well, hey, Graham, do you want to plug your project that doesn't have a name or a website?
Yeah, sure. Well, just to follow me on Twitter, just my name, Graham Goring, and I'll make sure I put maybe a GIF. I hear GIFs are good.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great. Griffin, anything you want to plug?
Yeah, Blank Check with Griffin and David, my podcast with David Sims, previous guest of the MinnMax podcast, where we talk about movies. We're going through the filmography of George Miller now, which also would be a Lego game that I would love to see that will never happen. Lego Mad Max, I would really be on board for. Tick is still streaming on Amazon and I think every country. Who knows when Bezos changes his mind and decides to delete it to free up server space. But for the time being, it is still on there. And then the He-Man cartoon, Masters of the Universe Revelation, I don't know when it's coming, because I know when it was vaguely supposed to come out, but who knows if that's pushed back now. But I've recorded a majority of it, and I think it's really good. Yeah.
Oh, good.
So I at least got most of my work done before everything shut down.
Yeah.
And hopefully everyone else is able to continue working on it.
Absolutely. Well, hey, thank you for joining us. Thank you for this dream mashup here.
True honor and a privilege.
Cool. Absolutely. For me too.
And now, just to confuse you both, do you both want to clap out simultaneously?
Yeah, perfect.
I'm holding on to a thing. Hang on.
Okay. It's perfect. Right. Okay, here we go.
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Jeffem, do you know how this whole thing operates here?
Magic.
Magic, everybody. The magic of the community coming together on patreon.com/MinnMax2N, supporting us at any tier. You get access to the Discord. You can leave comments for not only the MinnMax show, but then also for the deepest dive, like on stuff like the Final Fantasy VII Remake, stuff like that. We have a new round of, you can see the Smak's picture now, which is hilarious, but new round of Wall of Heroes. If you're a $100 supporter, which is bingo bango money, then you get on the TV behind us. You can choose whatever picture you want to go on there and make us laugh, make us cry, embarrass us, whatever you'd like. We'll put it on there.
Tell Jeffem to play Red Dead 2.
That's right.
Yeah, that's what Beating Down Brian did last time. Now he has a cute picture of his dog with a flower on its head because he's adorable. $50 tier, you get your name in the credits of every piece of MinnMax content, including this show and also a custom private thank you video from the four of us. But let's go through some of our supporters here. Look at this. A new supporter this month, Easygoing Gaming. Hey, Easygoing Gaming is an extremely... I won't botch your first read. Here we go. Easygoing Gaming is extremely excited to be one of MinnMax's monthly Patreon supporters. I chose to advertise on this channel because it's a channel I watch and enjoy regularly. Therefore, I felt this was the most organic form of advertising I could go for my channel. Easygoing Gaming is a YouTube channel dedicated to covering all things relating to the world of video games, with videos ranging from news and reviews to lists and predictions. I hope to provide a little bit of something for everyone. I've been a lifelong gamer, and I'm excited to share that love and passion with a community as passionate as MinnMax's. P.S. This was in a follow-up message. Hey, I've just recently noticed that if you type in Easygoing Gaming on the YouTube search, it doesn't always pull my channel up, but if you type in Easygoing Gaming channel, it pulls it up immediately. I was wondering if it'd be possible for you to add this little side note at the end of the ad read. If not, it's no problem. People should be able to find the channel. I apologize for the inconvenience. So you know that he's a wonderful guy if he's that concerned. Thank you, Easygoing Gaming, for your support. I went and checked out the channel. Beautiful motion graphics intro, much better than the MinnMax shows at this point, but maybe it's something we can work on in the future. He has a video up talking about Resident Evil 3, another one talking about a game that he's very excited about, which is the remaster of Saints Row 3. So thanks to Easygoing Gaming for your support.
Nice.
Also, I'm 8-Bit is still with us this month, which is very exciting. You can check out the I'm 8-Bit store. Everything on that store, you get 10% off if you enter the promo code MinnMax. And I was just cruising on the site, seeing what's new. They have something incredible. Kyle, you'd be into this. They have a physical version of the original Psychonauts on PlayStation 4, but the art is incredible. It's like Scott Campbell, who's stud muffin for our community, but also a designer and graphic designer over at an artist over at Double Fine. But it's like his art, so it's like this hand-drawn look. Check it out. It's really sweet. And then also...
what's our discount code so I can go ahead and grab that?
It's MinnMax2Ns, please. But then also, they have the Watam vinyl. That game from the creator of
Katamari Damacy.
The vinyl soundtrack for this thing is absurdly cool. So it has like a bowler hat that you flip up, and it actually gives like your album a bowler hat. It's absurd. They say it has innovative packaging with pop-out mayor hat. There it is. Music by Asuka, Brad, Sam, and Timmy, and album art by Keita Takahashi himself. It's a really great looking vinyl soundtrack. You can check that out along with other stuff at I'm 8-Bit store. And they give our community a prize every week with the I'm 8-Bit Question of the Week winner. So this week, if you submitted the best question, which we'll determine at the end, you get this album, the League of Legends DJ Sona Ultimate Concert Vinyl. Concussive Red Edition. I'll be damned. I'm going to be opening this sucker. This looks fantastic. Thank you so much. And now let's get into actual questions from the community. Kieran Robinson says, hey, with The Last of Us 2 being delayed indefinitely, how much of its delay do you think had to do with shipping and finishing the game, and what do you think about Naughty Dog potentially delaying it because of its subject matter? I, for one, did have second thoughts about jumping into quite a bleak game when the world around us isn't quite the greatest at the moment. What do you think about that? What do you think's really going on there?
I think it's like 95 to 99% manufacturing and shipping costs. Yeah, I would imagine.
Well, I think
I would go as high as 100.
I would too. I mean, maybe it's a consideration they think about, but at the same time, it's like, I think it's Sony's call. It's not Naughty Dog's call, right? Because in that post, they seemed a little bit bummed out about the decision because they want to get this thing out the door. But at the same time, too, I think it's, well, overall manufacturing perhaps, but then also, hey, we want to be able to sell these things in stores. And if everything's shut down, we don't want to lose 40% of our revenue or whatever it might be by potentially people finding it in a store, right?
Because as a smaller indie game, you really need to get all the exposure you can.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, because I guess you could say it's noble of them to try to like let people play it all at once, avoid spoilers and stuff like that. But I think it's just a manufacturing issue, like ultimately. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just the stores. Why is it not just the stores?
Well, I mean, like I said, manufacturing shipping costs or whatever.
Printing
like,
the discs,
putting the things in stores, I think is maybe the biggest hurdle there for sure. But I mean, I guess selfishly, I'm not going to buy a physical version of The Last of Us, so I would just prefer to have it digitally. But I'm not their only customer, of course, so I totally get them like just saying, well, if we can't put it in stores, we may as well not. Which is weird because I guess the movie industry is working out in different ways. They're either delaying stuff or they're just putting it out on digital. And I guess that
Hey, you guys excited for Trolls World Tour on Friday?
No.
Absolutely not.
But I think the subject matter is maybe not really a concern. I totally get why people would be reticent to play it, but I think as a whole, I don't think people are going to like hold off on it. I don't think the sales would be lower if they could get them in the stores. Yeah. Especially since like RE3, released. I don't know that stuff is necessarily as forefront of mind for them, for Sony.
Right.
If some people are thinking about it.
And we talked a little bit about it, I think, in the past, but it definitely is, heads up, brace for impact. I mean, I would not be surprised if Cyberpunk gets delayed again. I would not be surprised if Watch Dogs Legion is not coming out this year, Biomutant, Ghost of Tsushima. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that could be very severely impacted by this.
Tsushima, I think, might be next. Cyberpunk, I still have some confidence for. Although, like, they because it's September, I don't know. For some reason, I feel like Cyberpunk's not going to be affected by it, but maybe that's silly of me to think.
I mean,
it was surprising for me that they didn't, because they announced the Last of Us delay and the Iron Man VR delay at the same time. I'm surprised they didn't announce if they were going to delay Tsushima or if they had thoughts about it. I'm surprised they didn't fire off that delay at that point. Yeah, but maybe they're still trying to hold strong, because I don't think the virus is necessarily going to be necessarily winding down around then. So I'm very curious as to what their strategy is for Tsushima. Yeah. Do you think they would have delayed it by now if they were going to?
Right. Michael Moran says, with the Valorant closed beta starting today, that's the shooter from the Riot Games, Riot followed the recent trend of drops-enabled streams with a chance to win a closed beta invite if you link your Twitch account with Riot and watch Valorant streams. What are your thoughts on these, and can anyone in the community name a soul that has ever received a drops-enabled beta invite for anything? Maybe it's just me, but I feel like the crapshoot promise of getting a key strapped onto what is essentially just an advertising campaign leaves a bad taste in my mouth and makes me want to stop watching these streams, so I don't encourage the strategy moving forward. So I think it was on Tuesday the Valorant beta launched. We might be playing it in time for next week's episode. But with that, it was like, hey, turn into a stream, and then you have a chance to win. And maybe as a result of that, or maybe it's because Riot Games is huge, the Twitch numbers were off the charts this week. So many people were watching. What do y'all think of that strategy?
It overcame Fortnite officially at 1.7 million viewers by people watching Valorant. Yeah.
Jesus. What do you think of the strategy, though, of tying beta keys to streamers?
It was Michael. Was it Michael who wrote that?
Michael Moran, the guy whose butt I whooped in StarCraft.
I think Michael makes a fantastic point about like the futility of the contest angle. I was like, you're going to get a key, like if you participate in all, and like that's fair, but like, I mean, there's no denying that it was successful. Like Riot played it well, and it was very smart. I mean, there were all kinds of news stories that were yesterday that were just like millions of people are watching Valorant. This is insane,
right.
Like it just. So I think it was effective and smart on their end, but yeah, like as far as like it is ultimately all just like marketing and advertising, just trying to boost that number up, and it worked,
Yeah, more people were watching Valorant than Quibi, so it's getting out of the gate strong there. Shane Carley says, "Hey crew, last year my wife and I got some dinner with friends in Paris who were traveling across." Let me try this again. Shane Carley clearly says, "Last year, my wife and I got dinner with some friends from Paris who were traveling across the U.S. for their honeymoon. They mentioned they had bought tickets for the following day's Red Sox game, but being from France, they had never seen a baseball game before. They asked me to explain the rules, which as a huge baseball fan, I was immediately excited to do, but I quickly realized that baseball is absolutely impossible to explain to someone with no frame of reference. Seriously, where do you start? Innings, outs, runs? It's all gibberish. Anyway, it got me thinking, what video game mechanic would be the most impossible to explain to someone who has never played a video game before?"
Boy.
He says something like the Persona system to a non-gamer would be impossible.
The Persona system? Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What stands out?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. Like, I'm trying to think of a good highlight, but even something as simple as like, it's like, well, this one's a 2D platformer. Okay, hold on. I got to take a few steps back here.
Right.
Do you know what a Mario is? Do you know who Mario is?
Yeah, one time I was trying to play New Super Mario Brothers on the Wii with my mom, and like there were some kids around and stuff, and my mom's like, "Which one am I?" I'm like, "You're Mario, Mom." She's like, "Who's Mario?" And I was like, "Oh, Christ."
You're my mother?
Yeah, and I just walked out of the house. I haven't seen her since. I hope she's fine. I don't know.
I would say that I still don't understand what the hell an auto chess is, and so explaining that to someone who doesn't know video games would be very hard.
Yeah, that's probably a good point. Yeah, I had a moment recently where I was trying to explain to my girlfriend turnips and Animal Crossing and the stock market overall, and she naturally laughed at me, but just be like, "Hey, yeah, I'm going to be late coming over because there's turnip prices in Kurtztown and it's a whole ordeal," and trying to explain why it's very stressful and why people are screaming and text at me. It's like, it's just the stock market, baby. I don't know.
I was trying to sell a parent on Animal Crossing the other day, and I was like, I couldn't figure out a good way to sell it because kids are looking for things to play right now, and Animal Crossing's a good one.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, okay, it's kind of like a free-to-play game where you're like collecting stuff and you do have to wait, but you're not like spending any money. Like it's not like, because that was like their point of reference was like the free iPhone games that their kid plays.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's like that, but good and doesn't cost as much in the long run. and she was like, okay, thanks, I guess. They're just going to play Fortnite.
Mess. Yeah, I always think back, I think I told this story before on a podcast, but at some point, like an older girlfriend, she asked like, she saw League of Legends and she's like, "Why does that look like World of Warcraft?" And I was like, "Oh no." This is all right. Do you really want to know? Because sit down for this one. It's a mess.
Yeah.
What is Trials of Mana?
Mm-hmm.
Like the weird saga of that. It's a remake of a Super Nintendo that never came out in North America. I was trying to explain that to my wife, Ashley, who's a big gamer, plays tons and tons of games, and she was just, her eyes were glazing over of like, is it a good game or not? Like, should I care about this? I don't care about it being a Super Nintendo game that never came out. Should I play it? I'm like, well, don't you need all this information? She's like, no, I don't need any of this.
Yeah. I feel like we need that voice on the podcast every once in a while. Just stop over-talking things. Should I buy this or not? Shut up.
Yeah.
You're welcome to call in. We're just on Discord here. Anybody can jump in and call in at any moment. Tell us to shut up.
Shut up, please.
Yeah. Yarrow says, "Hello, lovely people. What is your favorite game that is not a part of a series?" So I guess no sequels, right? One and done.
It's weird because I want to say Killer 7, but that's weird because I don't know where this like falls because it's part of this weird loose trilogy that they share characters between like the Silver Case and Flower, Sun, and Rain, but they're not like directly related plot wise, so it's a weird gray area. But if that doesn't qualify, counts. It's probably Undertale.
Wait, but then Deltarune, doesn't that throw off your whole idea?
Oh, yeah, I guess it is part of a series now.
Yeah.
So then
does not count.
I think of one I always go to in this kind of question is Advent Rising for the box, which is a weird one because like it was set up to be a large trilogy and it definitely had like technical shortcomings and it didn't sell well, so it just never went anywhere. The game ends in a cliffhanger that will never be resolved because even the people who worked on it are now knee deep in Fortnite, so they're all set. But like that game had a really cool like mechanic where like the two analog sticks, like one was shooting and one was like force throwing and stuff like that against enemies. So it was really cool, and I always wanted to see it continue, but it's like it's never gonna happen. It's dead in the water. Like it was dead in the water like a month after it came out. So
yeah, I'd go Sunset Riders, I guess. Even though Mystic Warriors is kind of like a spiritual successor, but all that jazz. My name is Dan. Says, hey, the Switch has been out for over 3 years now, and I would like to know how you would grade the current state of Switch exclusives. Feel free to use whatever scale you want for grading.
I think they're good.
Good, he says.
Great.
I think this is maybe the first year where it, depending on what they announce or don't announce, it could end up being like kind of a middling year.
So we're going year to year or overall?
I think overall, just how's it doing for exclusives?
Overall, I think it's doing amazing.
Yeah, I think they came out really
first
strong.
Party just is fantastic. You can't. It's kind of undeniable,
Yeah, it's weird how like they've even been bolstered by like their own past. Like all those Wii U ports have done like a surprisingly good job of like getting people excited for the Switch. Since a lot of people didn't play those Wii U games, so they kind of have that bonus, underneath, like the fact that they were still designing games for the Wii U, even though people weren't buying it, ended up being a boon for the Switch ultimately.
It was all a long game, man. I know what they're doing.
That's a good way to phrase that.
Yeah, I mean, even as someone who doesn't own a Switch and has only played a couple games, that the answer seems obvious that they're doing it just about as good as you can, right?
I guess that's true. In my mind, it's like, well, I'll slow down for a bit, but I guess it's been so strong in Animal Crossing is now dominating the world.
Valleys, you know what I mean? Like for sure. I think
But in terms of bringing back almost every single series that people love with one of the best entries in that series,
I guess what more could you ask for?
And then the Panzer Dragoon remake is
come on. This is no place for snark, Kyle Hilliard. God damn it.
This does feel like the first year where if they don't announce stuff soon, it does seem like it'll be the kind of like their first really weak year.
But I mean, you can't say
for everyone else that's not you or me, like Animal Crossing is all anyone needs.
That's true.
That is true.
They do have they have at least one game, but even then it just feels like.
Well, I think Surreal. I mean, you're out of your mind. I mean, if those rumors are true and they seem too strong to not be true, the idea of every 3D Mario except for Galaxy 2 coming to the Switch and a new Paper Mario and a port of 3D World with new levels, like that's a strong year. That and Animal Crossing.
But again, I was saying like considering that they have not, if they don't announce something.
Right.
By the end of the year, or like if
something new.
The plans that we know for sure that we can lay out on the table, it doesn't seem like they're having like the best year so far. With Animal Crossing kind of being the only major tentpole release.
Gotcha.
If they do announce that Mario thing and a new Paper Mario, I think that'll be pretty cool.
Yeah.
But like I'm hoping that they have something, like 2 or 3 more major titles. Not everything on the level of like a Metroid Prime 4 or Bayonetta 3, but just something that says like, hey, here's what we've been doing recently.
The stuff like Bravely
too.
Well, no way. But like Bravely Default 2, do you think that's gonna do anything for you?
Yeah, I'm not for me personally, and I don't know. Like I know that it's a game that people really like, but I don't think it'll. I don't think it's one of those series that'll do huge numbers for them. I don't think.
What
Nintendo
about Xenoblade Remastered?
Yeah, maybe, but like again, that wasn't even a Wii U port. That was like a Wii port. So there's nothing beyond Animal Crossing that I would consider A tier. Whereas I think last year even we had like Fire Emblem, we had Luigi's Mansion, we had Pokemon, right? Like even just those 3 would be like that's a pretty solid lineup of exclusives. And I don't think we're like those Bravely Default and Xenoblade. I don't think approach that tier.
Sure. Joseph Vessel says, why aren't we seeing more third-party support on Switch? We're getting few AAA original titles coming from anyone other than Nintendo themselves. Most third parties are simply releasing older ports, which is true. You think about like third-party support, it's like, I think it's been decent, but it's like, I think everyone's just excited about ports. I'm still excited about ports on the Switch, But you think about like third-party exclusives, there's Octopath Traveler from Square, Bravely Default, I guess, and then like from Konami, Super Bomberman R.
Mm-hmm.
Am I missing?
Super Bomberman R is on Xbox too.
Oh,
That's
is
true.
it?
Yeah.
So is it just the Square stuff? Are there other third-party exclusives I'm not thinking of right now?
I'm like looking actually now at.
I mean the Switch version of Devil May Cry 3 has an exclusive feature where you can switch styles on the fly. So
yeah. Kyle, your mic was cutting out, but what'd you say?
Travis Strikes Again.
That's a great one. Yeah, you're totally right.
Yeah.
There we go.
Although I think that Nintendo did have some involvement with that.
Oh, is that right?
I don't think it's like 100% third party, but and
Does
I
not
think they
count.
also have some involvement with No More Heroes 3.
I think the reason is that it's like if you're making a game for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PC, if you want to make a Switch version, like you need to start over basically, or get a different studio to sort of downscale the game. You know what I mean? Like when they had the Wii, and the Wii was super popular, EA and different companies invested a lot in like the other version of games. You know what I mean? Like Prince of Persia came out on Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, but then they made a totally original version for the Wii. And I think that investment didn't pay off, so they're scared to do that kind of stuff again.
Yeah. There's also not as many third-party exclusives across the board outside of Sony. Like the Yakuza series is maybe the first thing that comes to mind, whereas a lot of the exclusives are still first-party. You know, you're not seeing as much of that as you used to. And I think like in terms of third parties investing in stuff, I think just the fact that we are getting like serviceable versions of third-party games and people are excited about those, just like Witcher 3, Divinity, Overwatch, things like that, and those seem to work well enough, I think is an exciting thing that Nintendo honestly hasn't had for a while. Because like, you know, with the Wii U, they had all those third-party parts like Arkham, I think City it was, or Arkham Asylum.
Armored Edition, baby.
Yeah. And then those completely petered out. The fact that hasn't happened with the Switch is kind of like a step up for Nintendo, oddly enough.
Yeah. Adam Cohen.
Call of Duty on Switch, what, Black Ops 2 on Wii U, right?
The best version.
Yeah, there it is.
It was good.
Well, that one you could play split screen with somebody looking at the gamepad, right? That's still such a fun idea. Adam Cohen says, "Hey, forward down, forward up crew." I've heard downright stand up. Somebody had a better phrase of putting that. Anyways,
for the logo.
The logo is what Adam's going for. But he says he has a question that's more attuned, I think, to MinnFacts, which is our weekly Patreon exclusive one to really dive into the MinnMax weeds. But he says, hey, general question about podcasting. There's so many different ways to listen to a podcast like Apple, Google Play, Spotify. I myself use an app called Podbean. I can't imagine you upload to each one individually. Is there a podcast database you upload to and it gets disseminated to all of them? Can you track the listens reviews from all the different apps? Yeah, we use a Pinecast. It's just one service, and then it infiltrates it. You have to like sync it with all the different accounts, and then it shoots off to all of them, hopefully at the speed of light. But in terms of stats, let's get busy with stats. All
right, Syndrome.
Add it up.
Thank you. Apple Podcasts, what percentage of listeners do you think use that?
60.
23%.
Okay.
23.
Never mind.
Yep. Pocket Cast is 12%. Spotify is 10%, which is growing huge. It's crazy.
That's
Podcast Addict, 9%. Overcast, 6%. Chrome, 4%. Castbox, 3%. Listening directly from iTunes, 1.3%. Then it gets into the freaky territory if you go to the bottom of the list, and this is the stuff that I'm fascinated by. 6 people are listening on Amazon Echo. Thank you for that.
Okay.
One person chooses to listen to the MinnMax show on Media Monkey. Not familiar with what that is.
Okay.
One person is playing the show through Opera, the browser, I guess.
Okay.
I think the Wii runs Opera, I think.
Okay. Yeah, maybe you're right. Yeah, so this is just based on the last episode of the MinnMax show. And then this is the person. If you are this person, please write into the MinnMax show. Let us know. One person's listening in Winamp. I don't know. I don't know what the current state of Winamp is, but thank you for listening to the next show on Winamp. We think it plays best on Winamp.
I think I'm looking it up, and Media Monkey might actually be like a Winamp alternative. It's a digital media player and media library application developed by Ventus Media Inc.
There it is.
Organizing and playing audio on Windows.
Who needs Winamp when you got Media Monkey, we say?
That's right.
Maybe it was the same person. They started halfway through. They were like, Media Monkey's not cutting it. I'm going back to vanilla Winamp, you know.
Get those old visualizers up and running.
Oh, so sweet. Carl Anders says, how about a game? Can you guess the game from the rare achievements? The title of achievement and what you need to do to get it is given.
I like this. Hanson, you would be very bad at this game.
Oh, I've never looked at achievements in my life, yeah. All right, this achievement's called Dragon Rider. Tame and ride 5 dragons.
Tame and ride 5 dragons. Can you say 3 achievement or trophy?
No, I cannot. And I don't know.
Okay. Also, I don't know.
Panzer Dragoon.
No, come on.
There wasn't
That's like
any
a
of those
default.
that had achievements.
What is number one dragon game, everybody?
The launch title for 360. What the hell is that game called? You know what I'm talking about? Or Xbox One?
Yeah. It's not that.
It's not that. Okay. But we all that wasn't a fever dream, right? We remember that there was a dragon riding game that launched with the Xbox One.
Yeah.
Number one. Is it it's not a Dragon Age. You never ride dragons in that game.
Number one dragon game, I'd say, in terms of sales. Juggernaut. Skyrim. There we go.
This is embarrassing. You can ride dragons in Skyrim?
Did they add that later or something? I'm not a big Skyrim guy. All right, anyways.
You just kill them, right?
They fell out of the sky. I thought that was the whole point.
I don't know. Lambada Locator.
Okay, so that's Half-Life 2.
Nice. Way to go, Kyle. Yeah, locate
Lambda.
all them.
It's Lambda, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Lambda?
Yeah, LAMDA, right? Or BDA, maybe?
Oh, he spelled it Lambada. So everything's with a grain of salt now from Carl
I
Anders.
still got it, though.
Yeah, very impressive. Giant Crown Master. Kill abnormally large monsters of each type.
Is that a Monster Hunter?
Monster Hunter World, you got it.
Hey!
Evil Nightmare. Complete resurrection of evil in Nightmare.
Oh, okay, so this might be
Doom 2?
Wow, Suriel, Doom 3. Way to go.
Oh, nice.
All right, this one's called Firefly. Compete 12 weeks in-game after joining group.
So what was the name again?
Firefly.
Firefly?
Come on, you
Is that
guys.
like a Final Fantasy 11?
No.
Destiny 2?
No. Just Suriel, it's down to you. Firefly, baby, come on. Come on!
Oh, I know what it is.
Suriel!
It's not
Come on!
Pyre, is it?
What is it?
Pyre?
No, it's The Last of Us,
Well,
everybody.
although there's a lot of letters that overlap there.
That is true. Mini Game Master. Complete all mini games.
Come on, Suriel. You got that's only one game that has mini games.
Suriel! Get it!
Wait, why am I the one guessing?
Get it, Suriel!
Super
He
Mario
did guess
Party?
Pyre, so I guess we've all guessed now, right?
I thought this was sort of I was the last one to guess for the Firefly one.
Yeah, that one was Last of Us. We're moving on here. This is
So why am I the only one guessing? And why
Suriel,
are
will you just guess Minigame Master?
Dragon.
Oh, okay. Spyro the Dragon.
No. Jeff,
What the hell is going on?
I don't know anymore. Think of
It's really not Spyro?
No. Number one minigame game, I would say. Minigame series.
I mean, it's not Mario Party.
No.
The game doesn't have achievements.
Correct. Suriel just mentioned this series about 6 minutes ago. Jeffem, you mentioned it yesterday when we were playing Final Fantasy VII and playing the dart game, and you said, this is like...
Yakuza.
Yakuza! There it
I
is.
was
That's
gonna say
Yakuza 3,
Fusion
technically.
Frenzy 2.
Sorry. Good job, everybody. Nailed it. Thank you, Carl. We're on
like that
fire.
I learned that you could ride dragons in Skyrim. I had no idea.
Stud Muffin says, hey, at what point do you personally skip a cutscene? Great question.
It's
Stu.
never.
What is
Unless
it?
I've seen it before.
Yeah.
Really? I feel like maybe I start up so many games on Steam just to play the opening, and it has to be like egregiously stupid with the story for me to be like, I'm skipping this. It takes a lot. But Kyle, what does it take for you?
I mean, I do not skip cutscenes. Like if I'm like replaying, maybe I'll skip or something like that.
Yeah.
I have one occasion where I skipped every cutscene, and it's the only time I've done it, and it was with Prototype 2, which is very random. But I was like, that game's all about like, you know, getting really strong and climbing buildings and flying around, and I was like really in the mood to do that. And I never beat Prototype 1, so I didn't care about the story. And I was like, you know what? I'm just skipping all these. And like I skipped every cutscene, and then in the end of the game, the end boss, spoiler for Prototype 2, if you want to hit 15 seconds ahead here, was the protagonist from the first game, and I had no idea why that was happening.
Oh, wow. That's fun. Jeremy McPhail says, hey, MinnMaxers, I just recently picked up Beat Saber for the PlayStation VR, being stuck in the house
Congrats!
and all. I know Kyle is a big fan, so these questions are for him. Feel free to join in others,
Suriel's
obviously.
a fan too, I think, right?
Yeah, I like Beat Saber.
He's a VR boy now.
Other games, he's looking for other games similar to it in the sense that it is fun, but you also accidentally get a workout.
A Pistol Whip.
Oh,
definitely, like 100%. Like those games go hand in hand to me. Like they feel kind of similar.
is Pistol Whip on PSVR though?
Oh, you know what? I don't think it is. That's a good point. PSVR, huh?
Apparently
man,
it's in development for PSVR.
Second, I'm gonna look it up, but there is a game that's kind of like Tron, where you're like throwing a sort of frisbee that I reviewed actually for Game Informer, and it was one that I definitely worked up a sweat playing. Let's see.
Well,
while he looks for that, you could also just go play frisbee in your yard.
You can't go
but
outside.
there's people out there.
Yeah, what if somebody else catches your frisbee and then throws it back to you? That's very dangerous, Jeffem.
Sorry.
Spark.
I didn't think about that.
SPARC.
Spark
is what it's called.
So
and
that'll
it's like
make
a
nice
one-on-one game. You have a shield, and you sort of are bouncing a ball back and forth, and you can use the shield to like bat it back. It's like online multiplayer. It's pretty cool.
Okay, cool.
And then if Echo Arena, I don't think Echo Arena is PSVR. That might just be Oculus, but that's like a multiplayer shooter in zero gravity where you actually have to grab the walls to sort of move around the environment.
That's the Ready at Dawn developed one, right?
Yes, yeah, which is very cool. I played it at E3 with Soulja Boy.
Oh, congratulations. And you were sweaty because you were near Soulja Boy?
That's right, yeah, I told him.
Phil S. says, sometimes...
I said, I'm near you!
I'm near you right now, soldier! Phil S. says, sometimes my favorite features of a game come as part of an update rather than a full expansion, such as the addition of a photo mode. Shout out to Photo Mode Snap, which, by the way, is up on our YouTube channel. Or an overhaul to how loot progression works. Currently, I am super excited for the PSVR game Crisis Brigade to add in co-op in an upcoming update. Has there ever been any instances where a single update has significantly changed the way you felt about a game, better or worse? One update.
Yeah, it made me like a game a lot more, but it was a game that I already liked, and that was No Man's Sky. When I finally went back to it years after they released that next update or whatever, I was surprised by how much it actually did change the game and how much focus that it added that it didn't have before. And I liked just the random wandering to begin with, but I ended up enjoying it a lot more once I had more focused things that I was building towards.
Yeah, right on.
So
Mark Ramirez says, hey, Ben in the CLCs, what is something that has made you laugh this week? Anybody laughed yet?
Yeah, I did. I played another board game with my wife, and she beat me so badly. She had we went into the final round. You know, you once someone goes over the threshold, which was 40 points, you trigger that becomes the last round. And she got to 40 points, and I had 2 points at that juncture. Because you were kind of putting out cards and you're building an engine to score you victory points, but you can just get a lot of unique abilities. So I spent the entire game setting up like this very convoluted engine that would supposedly get me victory points at one day, while she just steadily went ahead and she got all these points. And at the end, she just laughed at me in my face and said, what the hell were you doing the whole time? And then we kind of realized that she probably beats me probably like 80% of the time when we play board games. And we had a good laugh as to why the hell that is, since I'm the one who enjoys them so much and is always, watching videos, and I'm the one that actually buys them. And then she begrudgingly plays them with me and beats me most of the time.
What a good, wholesome relationship you have. Just chuckling about playing board games. That sounds great.
That's right. She really embraces the fact that I'm a nerd and doesn't mind it. So
wow, that's
very
sweet.
lucky.
Shuffle. Oh, I was thinking about when we streamed all of Midgar in the original Final Fantasy VII on Tuesday. I think I laughed a lot. My friend Ronnie made me laugh a lot, making stupid quips throughout that. So you can check that out, everybody. Anybody else laughed?
I've had a lot of kind of inspired by enjoying Half-Life so much. I kind of went down a Portal rabbit hole and dragged my daughter with me. Definitely did this thing of like, all right, you've played enough Fortnite. You know how to do dual analog sticks now. You're playing Portal.
Oh no.
And I had a great time watching her play. It was like hilarious. She did really well. Like I was really impressed. And then she was freaking out over the turrets. She was so scared of getting hit by the turrets And then when she finally figured out how to get behind them and knock them over, and they say things, and they start like screaming, and they're like, ah! Like she was losing her mind. And I was like, oh, I love Portal so much. This game is so great. And then I watched a bunch of the old like trailers with J.K. Simmons narrating them.
Yeah.
And it's just so good, man. It's so, that game is so amazing.
Were you like screaming at your daughter, like, this is literally, your middle name is Chell. Like, you need to enjoy this? Like, does she acknowledge that?
She knows. Like I told, like
Okay.
I was like, that's Chell. That's who we named you after, because your mom and I played so much Portal 2 while she was pregnant with you.
Conceived.
Like it was very important to us. And she got into it. Like she enjoyed it. She had a good time. I didn't feel like I was forcing her too much, which I'm always hesitant to do. I don't like to try to like force her to try things that I think she might like. Like I let her back away when she's like bored with it. But Portal, she played for a long time and got really far.
So insisting that you're not forcing your kids to be into video games or your kid and naming them Chell. I don't know if that's a good 1-2 punch.
It's just a name, man.
Okay.
Like,
all right.
She doesn't have to do anything with that.
I guess that's true. Shuffle Guy says, Dear Ben CLCs, have you heard that Mitsuda is creating music for Sea of Stars, that upcoming RPG from the creator of The Messenger? Brings me to my question, which old composer would you like to see help with a new modern gaming title? And which title? Hope you have a safe weekend. Thank you, Shuffle Guy. Yeah, that's exciting that Chrono Trigger's composer is coming back to compose something for Sea of Stars, which it sounds like a cool RPG, but it's just getting kickstarted now, and it's not going to be out till, I think, like 2022, Brian Shea was saying on the Game Informer show, so it seems like a lifetime away. Yeah. But for me, it's Tim Follin, Follin. Like, he did a lot of music back in the day on the NES, and he hasn't written music recently, but like his soundtrack for Solstice on the NES is the biggest banger on the NES soundtrack, or the NES system overall, I would say. And he also composed like Pictionary on the NES, which is just absurd, and like Silver Surfer. It's just weird cuts like that, but he always comes out swinging. So I hope he comes back in some capacity. That'd be a fun thing to have like an indie project, go hire that guy back again.
I have not heard a lot from Akira Yamaoka recently. He was like a Silent Hill composer that I think now works at Grasshopper. The last thing he made was the last game he did composition for was the Silver Case, the 25th Ward, which was a re-release of like a sequel to the Silver Case. But yeah, I haven't heard like a good Akira Yamaoka soundtrack in a while. But
well, there were like rumors that he's involved in the creative team with Konami making a new Silent Hill in some way, but that all seems to be.
So I need to hear that music if he's making it. You know,
Yeah.
like I haven't heard from him since like 2018. So
For sure. Weston McCain says, hello, Serial and the gang.
hello.
There it is.
Okay.
Is there any guest character in a video game franchise more unusual than Negan from The Walking Dead in Tekken 7? I personally love The Walking Dead, but cannot justify why Namco would choose such an unrequested and obscure character.
I don't think he's obscure,
I
but
think he's really popular. This
Yeah,
is he?
probably just doesn't watch Walking Dead, right?
No, he says he loves Walking Dead.
Oh, okay. Never mind. That was a lie.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he's definitely surprising for Tekken. It seems like this weird out of left field thing.
I mean, in the fighting game issue at Game Informer, I think with Mortal Kombat, I think I did the top 10 list. That was like top 10 strangest and most obscure fighting game characters.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And like Phoenix Wright always stands out to me in Marvel vs. Capcom. And then you'll have to help me here, Cyril. I think it's like Fighting All-Stars or something like that. You can play as a Daytona car.
Yep.
Right.
Which is like, you can't beat that. It's a car.
Well, yeah, we asked Yu Suzuki about that because he was a producer in the game. We were at that
yeah.
studio, and he said that was the director's call. So
I love it. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
There's also the original box art Mega Man that was in Street Fighter Cross Tekken.
That might be the best. It's just
That's
so
good, yeah.
bizarre. Yeah. Tyler Carver. I recently started playing through Shadow of the Colossus for the first time, and I'm frankly just blown away at what the game does, especially when thinking about it being released almost 15 years ago. It made me think about the other games that I've played and getting older in general, and it made me wonder, what makes a game able to stand the test of time? What a tricky one, Tyler.
I mean, it's good design, right? I mean, like, the bones of a game just have to be really stellar. Like, I remember thinking that playing the Resident Evil 2 remake, because just this sort of the pace of backtracking and re-exploring that police station over and over and getting keys to unlock doors to get more keys, it's like those bones were there and they held up really well. They just changed the perspective and made the shooting a lot better, you know? And so like I think that's what it takes. Like, it's not visuals, it's just design.
Good design bones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also,
I mean, which is when we talked to Miyamoto and Onuma on the Zelda cover story trip, I mean, that was something that he talked about, of just like, games having to have the base to make them like hold up really well. Because we asked him about like, would you ever consider remaking Zelda 2 or something like that? And that was like a concept that he talked about,
Well, I wonder too if there's some sweet magic in simplicity. Like Shadow of the Colossus, relatively simple game. I'm trying to think about like the most complex game that has stood the test of time, like SimCity 2000 or something. I'm trying to think, like, is there something there?
I mean, I guess what about like classic Final Fantasy? Like, I mean, those games are pretty complicated in terms of strategy and tactics.
Yeah, I don't think they've stood the. I mean, for me personally, they haven't stood the test of time. Final Fantasy 7, of course, because I'm nostalgic about it. It's flawless.
Yeah, that's why they completely revamped it for the remake.
That's right. Yeah, but like going back to the original Final Fantasy,
Trigger, we went back to and that held up. That holds up really well.
And a relatively simple game, right? So what?
Yeah.
No fluff. Don't get overly complicated. Don't reach too far with your control scheme. Trying to think what else. What are the other ingredients?
I mean, that too is kind of falls under the umbrella of good design, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big umbrella, to be fair.
Yeah,
I also think that there is a good time and a place thing where I think nostalgia does factor in just as much as like, oh, this is a really good game, but then also it was part of a moment, and so people remember it well, and it does stand the test of time, particularly because when those people play it, they have like memories, and like the game itself doesn't impede that. Like they're okay, I remember this being as good as it was because it was so streamlined. It did have simple concepts, and also I played it back in the day because it was popular.
Yeah. Holden Hints, what's the first sit-down restaurant y'all are going to after this is over? I'm going out for some Korean barbecue so I can feel normal again. Holden for Holden.
That's a good one.
I have right before this whole thing started, I was begging my friend Ronnie and his girlfriend that like, hey, we need to go to a Pizza Hut. I want to go sit down at a Pizza Hut like I did when I was little. And then like it's tougher than you think to find like a Pizza Hut where you can still go and sit down and they actually have tables ready to go. But like a couple exist in the city. So I was like, ready to go. Let's get this rolling. And then this virus crashes through. So absolutely Pizza Hut for a personal pan pizza once this thing's over.
Perfect. There's a Mexican restaurant near my house called Cuco's, which I'm hoping will open again once this is all over, because it's just a very small, kind of family-owned restaurant. But my wife and I went there a lot before this happened, and we've been going through withdrawal for burritos at this point.
Oh no, you can still. Now this is very specific. You can still. I know Taco Riendo burned down. This is Minneapolis talk, but Maya, you can still go pick up a burrito there if you want.
Yeah, I know, but I have an allegiance to this place because it's still close.
Cuco for Cucos, I get it. And how close is it, and what's the direction?
Yeah, nice try.
Hey! Juan Maroquin says, hello from Seattle. My favorite teriyaki spot recently closed its doors after 30 years of operation. Have you ever had a restaurant close down, and how did you deal with it? People are starving, apparently, from the questions.
There you go.
Yeah, restaurants that closed down that you were partial to.
Yeah, there was a pizza place also very close to where I live in a different direction, so I'm not going to say what it was, so you can't triangulate where I am. But they made the closest that I had ever found to like a New York style pizza that tasted like pizza from New York. And so I was very, very happy to have found it because I lived in New York for a while. And so I was missing that pizza for a long time, and they had it. And then I went and lived in Japan for a year. And when I came back, they were closed. And that broke my heart.
Oh, brutal. I'm sorry.
There was a place I went to in college all the time in Charleston. It was called Hoagie Heaven, and they made like Philly cheesesteaks, and they had one that had like French fries in it. And it was fantastic. And like my whole life, I feel like I anytime I order a Philly cheesesteak, it's me just chasing that sandwich, and I'll even get a side of fries and put my own fries in it and stuff. I've never been able to find anything that's good. And then like they closed down at some point, and I just kind of missed when it happened. And I remember even going there like with the intention to go get that sandwich, and that's how I learned that it had like turned into like Jimmy John's or something. And every couple of years I'll be like, man, I'm never gonna eat one of those ever. Like that's the whatever the last time I had that sandwich was the last time I had that sandwich. It bums me out.
Devastating.
There was a place near my place called Uptown Pizza, and they didn't close down. I think they ended up moving, but I think their new location is too far away for them to deliver to me. So they're dead as far as I'm concerned. So I'm not able to get that pizza anymore. Which is
no!
I'm sorry, Cereal.
I'm sorry, Cereal. Mike. Oh, there used to be a place in Columbia Heights, Minnesota called Albert's that served alligator burgers, and they shut down, and so they'll be missed. Do you remember Albert's, Jeffem?
Wonder why they shut down. No, I don't.
Turns out it was not practical. Anyways,
you ever have?
they all taste like leather.
Yeah, exactly. It's just sucking on leather. Mike Vote says, hello, MinnMax. Assuming standard McDonald's size, what's the right number of chicken nuggets? Hang on. Everybody come up with their number privately, and then we'll say it on the count of 3.
Should we hold up hands or just say a number out loud?
Let's say the number. Okay, everybody ready? This timing's going to be perfect. 1, 2, 3, 7. 10, Cereal?
10?
Yeah, they had that one deal, and I thought that's a good number of nuggets.
What did you say, Hanson?
I said 7, and you two said 6. All right. So
how are you going to do 7?
I don't know. You eat 7. What are you talking about?
But
So
who's
you have
going to
to order
serve you
like a
7
6-pack
chicken
and a
nuggets?
3-pack and then throw
That's
2 away?
not a...
I buy them one at a time from the
okay.
dumpster.
If you order a 6-pack and then you wink at them, and they'll give you an extra one.
Christopher Reardon says, a few weeks ago, Ben mentioned journaling as a possible home activity coping mechanism during this public health crisis. I've never been able to commit to a journal for more than a few days, but I'm proud to say I have done it every day for 2 weeks in a row now, and it has been a very rewarding experience. I don't have much to write about besides daily drama, news stories, and my progress in Stardew Valley and Ring Fit, but it still feels like I'm lifting a bit of weight off my soul every time I put the words down. I also agree that there may come a time in the far future when I'd like to look back on what I and the world at large were going through during this time. Not a question, just a thank you for the great advice. Thank you, Christopher Reardon. That's excellent.
That's great,
advice.
except I was the one who recommended it.
Oh, I thought, yeah, it didn't seem too familiar to me, but there we go. Good job, Jeffem.
So thanks.
Let's see. Jeff Enright says, hello, Quarantinians. Thought I would ask this week if you've ever watched a YouTube story gameplay edit of games you don't have time to play. Yes, no. I do this every once in a while. Like, I think I watched the story mode of Mortal Kombat 10 on YouTube, and then like Peace Walker, I've never played. I just watched the YouTube cut, enjoyed the hell out of it. Just recently I did it with Crisis Core. Just find like a 3-hour cut. It's a great time. Highly recommended if you're actually not going to go and play that game ever. Oh, Taylor Owens. Here's a weird one. Hey, there sure are a lot of remakes from games 20 years ago. Now, imagine it's 20 years from now. What games are getting remade, and what are they like? Isn't this a stinker?
I like this question. I don't have an answer for it though.
What?
But I think it's interesting because I can't imagine what games we would remake, that we would have to remake. You know, so much of remakes is because that PS1, PS2 era, those games just look bad and you don't want to go back to them.
Yeah.
But like, what are you gonna remake?
No Man's Sky.
Control.
I think Undertale could be like the next cave story in like 20 years.
That they make a 3D version of?
Like just like they keep making different versions of it with different visuals. Like who's the guy that directed Undertale?
Toby Fox.
Like, I don't know. I don't really think this will happen, but like maybe it's like a Minecraft situation where like someone offers him an absurd amount of money to just have Undertale.
That feels like something that would happen.
Everything I want to do with it, you can have it, and then they just like do remasters and they try a version with 3D polygonal characters and like.
That feels like 7 years from now. I don't know about the 20 years. 20 is a long time, man. I can't even think of what year.
Yeah, we're going to be playing games with our brains.
Well, that's the question. What do you think gaming is going to be like in 20 years, Jeffem?
Probably going to be playing games with our brains. I don't know.
No, that's going to be 40 years. But 20 years is going to be this weird middle ground where I have no idea. Probably similar. I have no idea. It's such a mushy territory.
I mean, Valve's already talking about brain games. Like they've experimented with like people using their tongue to like as controllers.
That was just
and
Gabe
stuff like
Newell
that. Like,
licking
kinds of
some
weird stuff
cheese
over
off of his DualShock. I mean, that's not. He's been talking about that for a long time.
Yeah, I don't know.
Remasters of Call of Duty Modern Warfare remastered.
Oh God,
That's true. It's true. Actually, like any Call of Duty game with a single player campaign will probably be re-released.
Yeah.
Like Minecraft.
I mean, I feel like that'll still be around, but
Yeah,
I don't know if it'll be a
Breath of the Wild.
that could be.
remade, though. I could see them being remastered, but I don't.
I mean, we probably said the same thing about Link's Awakening. Like, this is perfect. We don't need to do anything to this.
Don't ever touch it. Yeah. I mean, I half jokingly said No Man's Sky, but in terms of like a game that feels like it's almost punching above its weight in a way that would be good throughout time and they could expand on it more, like maybe something like that, right?
Maybe.
Oh, what about like Mass Effect? Like more than just a port?
No, they'll never.
Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3?
That again
No,
feels
that-
like 7 years.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
That
You don't
won't
think-
happen.
That
They're
feels
never
like
gonna
7
do
years
that.
ago they should have done that.
Brady E says, hello, everybody. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Jeff, I hope your day is extra fantastic.
Thank you. It is now.
Oh my God, Brady. So based off the MinnMax Twitter account, I already know that I like the look of the PS5 controller more than you all do. I was just being a little jokey. I don't hate it. But we're all about positivity here in the MinnMax community, right? So I'd like to hear your favorite uses of the PS4 controller's light bar. Another thing I know I like a lot more than all of you, for me, it has to be how it flashes red, white, and blue every time you finish a level in Broforce. That's very fun. Favorite
That's pretty good.
uses of the light bar?
I mean, the only use is to show like your health, right? It changes to match whatever your health is, like green to red.
Yeah, like on recent where they moved the light bar up into the touchpad. I think they're doing that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, one that I only saw because I was facing somebody while they were playing it is in Grand Theft Auto 5. When you get chased by the cops, your controller flashes red and blue, which I think is pretty cool, actually.
That is super fun. I think,
Yeah.
God, was this just on the cover story trip they talked about, Kyle? But I think in Rise of the Tomb Raider, when you're by a campfire, I think it's like red and orange and white, and it like alternates on the PS4 controller.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I think there's something like
man,
that.
I love that idea. Like, I really do. Like, I like the idea of you're sitting in a dark room, like it's sort of like getting flashes of like orange lights and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think that works well with like the Philips like Hue light bars that you can like put behind your TV and program.
Right.
Which none of, like you can do some of that stuff with PC games, but no console games. But I feel like that light doesn't fill enough of like a dark room to make a difference, and then it just only reflects in the TV and it becomes distracting. Like there's smart ideas there. Like I like that they're relocating the light bar to somewhere different on the controller to maybe make it more visible without reflecting in the TV. But yeah, I think it's cool. But it's even when it is used well, it just doesn't quite work. I think the way they hope it does.
Sure. Eduardo Morboxis says, what was Jeffham's favorite part of Red Dead Redemption 2's epilogue?
Yeah, Jeffham.
Floor is yours.
You don't want to spoil.
No. Okay, let's move on. Greg Flaming Queso Griffith says, okay, I know Jeffham finishing Red Dead Redemption 2 comes up every episode and was hoping to do this on MinnMax for the call-in, but let me give Jeffham my best sales pitch. Don't worry, no spoilers. Jeffham, I, like you, put down Red Dead Redemption 2 about halfway into the game. In fact, I put that game down 3 different times and only pushed through to the end because of the MinnMax Discord's encouragement. And I am so glad I did finish it. We have a mandatory quarantine now, and it is the time. Jump back in where you're in the game and follow the main story. I promise it's worth it. Now, are you calling Greg Flaming Queso Griffith a liar, Jeffham?
No, I'm sure he's right. I'm sure everyone is right. I want to go back to it.
No, you
Now
don't. No, you don't. That is my argument.
I do.
No,
I do.
Absolutely. It's been 2 years. You clearly do not want it.
I want it.
You have nothing but time.
Now I have nothing but time to play Final Fantasy VII for the next month.
Okay, great. You've had the last 5 months of sitting on your thumb.
Which game wasn't I supposed to play to talk about, Hanson? How about you just type out a schedule for me of what games I should play when, and then we'll go based on that.
And I'm gonna type.
Let's knock Pillars of Eternity off that list and replace it with Red Dead Redemption 2.
Yeah.
I'm just saying you don't want to finish it that bad. Otherwise, you would have finished it.
No, it's a game that I want to go back to, but I know it'll take me another 100. So when do you? I understand that I have to jump in and just do a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
To go through it, but right now it is that feeling of, well, I need 100 hours to sit down and actually play this and be a cowboy for as long as it's going to take me.
You don't need 100 hours.
I do.
You could finish that game in 20 to 30 hours from where you're at.
I would never do that.
Jeffem,
I'll start after Final Fantasy VII. There's no more games coming out, right?
That's true. So
games.
Are you promising that you will finish that game right now?
I am promising I will start playing it again.
All right. Okay. Hey, progress. Let's take it.
Yeah. Red Dead 2 Game Club, except it's just Fava monologuing about.
Oh my God, I would love that. That would be very fun. Evan McHugh says, any of you watch Onward? I felt like it was the first Pixar movie that was unquestionably worse than DreamWorks / other studios. It had fun parts, but really felt off.
Get out of here!
With really generic designs and lame core gimmick. This is on Disney Plus right now. Kyle, the floor is yours.
Boo. No.
Boo.
That Onward's really good. I will agree with the generic designs. I will agree with that for sure.
Yes.
But I think that movie's really sweet and charming, and I've watched it probably 3 times at this point. I really like it.
Yeah, I watched it.
Which one is it?
Onward, the latest Pixar movie.
But what is it?
It's about the brothers. It's like takes place in a modernized fantasy world, and there are these 2 brothers who are trying to bring their father back to life for one day. It's on Disney Plus.
Okay, I'll watch that instead of playing Red Dead.
100 times.
It's only 90 minutes, so you know.
I'm with you. So I was in the camp of not liking the designs too much, and even just the core idea. It's like, I don't like fantasy stuff. Plus, I watched Bright on Netflix a couple years ago, so I felt like I got the idea. But it really won me over. There's a couple of moments, and by the end of that movie, it's like, oh, it's one of those movies where it's like, okay, I got it. I know where this is going. Got it. And then still tears in my eyes by the end. It's like, wow, give it up for the film, like for being skeptical, and it still got me. And like, I think the quote unquote last boss in that movie is like, that's a really clever idea, like where it comes from. And it's like, I had never seen that in a movie before. I thought that was awesome. And just one scene, without any spoilers, but just in a vague sense, where a character is watching another character do something that they suddenly realize is very scary. You know what I'm talking about, Kyle?
Yeah.
And like, he wipes away a tear as he's like, it's fine, everything's good. And like, seeing a character cry because they're so scared for another character is like, I don't think I've ever seen that in an animated film. What a fun detail from them.
Man, I love the dynamic between the brothers, because it's about a pair of brothers.
Yeah.
And like, there's an element of the movie where the older brother is clearly the one who is like, I love magic. I love this world of magic. I'm obsessed with this.
Yeah.
But it becomes the younger brother who sort of has to do the magic. And I love that that's never a point of like jealousy for the older brother. Like, I love that the older brother is just so supportive of the younger brother, like through and through. Like, there's never a moment of like, oh man, I wanted to be the magic guy. It's just
that
like,
right? He doesn't have one line about that.
And like, I just love that relationship between those 2 guys.
Yeah, it works really well.
So I'm sorry that the person who wrote in didn't like it. I really did like it. Like, I mean, they probably haven't seen Cars 3. I think is why they say it's like.
I mean, I think, Cars 3. Good Dinosaur is still a movie that I wanted to love so much, and then was just numb throughout the entire thing.
That's fair.
Tom Blackburn says, hello, quarantine-loving cohorts. Suddenly a great crack in the sky opens and light shines down Hansen's basement, giving MinnMax the power and burden of choosing a new first-party studio to develop a sequel to every first-party game. However, each property has to go to another platform. All right. Who developed State of Decay 3?
Great question.
From another platform.
I think a good choice would be any technically proficient studio.
Okay, so what's the most technically proficient studio from another platform? Even like a ready.
What? So you're talking first-party developer of a different platform gets it?
Yes.
Oh,
I'll go
boy.
it's not first party, but they've worked together in the past. I'll give State of Decay 3 to Ready at Dawn. They have the multiplayer experience from Lone Echo now. They clearly they got their tech chops. They can handle it. Mario Party.
Okay.
Mario Party. Well, Naughty Dog has made party games.
Have they?
They made a Crash Bash.
No,
right?
they didn't develop Crash Bash.
Oh, okay, I don't know. Never mind.
But they probably wanted to. So I agree, Kyle. Plus, I think it'd be fun because you'd basically be getting 100 Naughty Dog games in a package. So they should develop Super Mario Party 2, I guess.
Sure.
Spider-Man 2.
Oh, wait, it has to be a different...
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say Sucker Punch. My reaction was Sucker Punch because that's who I thought was going to make Spider-Man.
I thought
initially.
so too. Yeah.
And was even... As much as I ultimately liked Spider-Man, I was a little disappointed when it turned out to be Insomniac because I thought Sucker Punch was a better fit.
Yeah.
But I mean, taking a step back, like Spider-Man came out fantastic. Like they were clearly a great fit. But yeah, Spider-Man, so different. Yeah, different.
Mojang
developer. Mojang.
No.
Ninja Theory.
Ooh.
Oh. What's it like? Pitch it.
Yeah. You're okay. You're Spider-Man, right?
Love it. Green light.
Great. All right. Pitch over. I will follow up with a full game attachment in email.
What about Insomniac? But when Insomniac made Sunset Overdrive for Xbox,
that's really smart idea, man. That's really smart idea. Fable. So I guess the Fable reboot.
Fable reboot.
Oh, Intelligent Systems.
Humor.
Why? Make that pitch.
Well, the RPG experience, the Fire Emblem, going back to like Paper Mario even, they got the comedy chops, they got the RPG chops.
Have they made an action-based game?
Have they made it? Have you... I don't know. Let's see. There's got to be. Yeah, have you ever heard of a little game called... yeah, Surreal, you could say that again. Have you ever heard of a little game called WarioWare Smooth Moves?
You're right. I retract. Yeah, make it like WarioWare Smooth Moves.
All right. Astrobot 2.
Astrobot 2.
Ooh, got it. Double Fine.
Yeah.
I was waiting for just a realm of applause to hit me here, but
well, because like
just give that one to Nintendo.
An actual like legitimate platformer hasn't been like their forte. I think it'd be a funnier version of Astrobot, but
yeah, I guess you're right. We should just give it to the Mario team. I guess that's stupid not to. All right,
Labo VR.
Sea of Thieves 2.
Gorilla, someone who is willing to give it some RPG mechanics.
Okay,
that's all I want for that game.
There we go. And the legend.
I even tweeted about it recently, or someone was tweeting at me, and they're like, "No, you don't get it, man. Like that, they want everyone to be level playing field."
Person
I'm like,
smart.
I just want to have a reason to buy a sword. That's like, I don't want to buy anything because nothing does anything different. I don't care. Like,
you don't get it.
I want to be able to have some growth, and I want this sword to do more damage. You know.
I feel like the whole point of that game was that it wasn't that, so it'd just be like not Sea of Thieves. What's that? It'll probably be like Skull and Bones is basically what you want, right?
I think it is.
Remember
that game? Yeah, that's a weird one. Oh boy, that's probably not coming out this year then. The Legend of Zelda.
From.
Just give it to
From. Not a first party.
Yet.
Gorilla?
Yeah.
Gorilla.
Just with the Horizon stuff. Yeah. There it is.
To make Sea of Thieves and Zelda.
What if Breath of the Wild had icons indicating where you should go at all times instead of its central thesis that you should just do that stuff yourself?
Yeah, or just give it to Playground. Yeah, the Forza Horizon team.
Or give it to Mojang.
Give it to Mojang. All right, thank you so much, Tom Blackburn. What do you guys like for question of the week? I like the remakes 20 years from now, or also what makes the game stand the test of time. I think those are interesting.
I think between those two, I like the remake one. I don't know if we had a really came to a good agreement, but I just like that. I like that sort of thought
experiment
of just like, what could be remade, you know?
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, Taylor Owens, congratulations. You get the League of Legends soundtrack on vinyl. Way to go. Thanks for writing in and being a supporter at patreon.com/MinnMax2Ns. For now, it's time for Get a Load of This. Jeff, mark your follow.
Okay.
Cereal,
Jeff,
please.
Go for it.
No, Cereal, yeah.
No, yo, I insist.
You always go first, Cereal.
All right. Get a load of this.
Yeah.
Here's a headline from Kotaku.com that says Super Mario 64's glitchy smoke has been fixed after 24 years. So apparently the smoke that Mario gets under his butt when he is alighted by fire or touches lava or whatever, it was apparently super glitchy for some reason. And I guess someone had compiled the code, and I guess they made a one-line fix in the game's code. Let me see. Turns out the, quote, texture is displayed in the wrong format by the game, resulting in black garbage pixels. And the fix simply corrects the error by displaying the texture correctly as a proper transparent smoke. It does not add any new art. The texture has been inside the ROM the whole time. So if you remember, that smoke was really puffy and kind of glitchy. It's just a bunch of black spidery lines. And apparently this quick fix makes it look like proper actual smoke. If you remember, something that comes to everybody's mind is the way Fox's Firefox looks in the first Smash Brothers.
That's
the way
right.
It's just a series of clouds.
Yeah.
So that's what it looks like after the patch, and it actually looks pretty cool.
I wonder if in the remake then, coming to Switch, what that's going to look like.
So yeah, it's weird how I really like it when these very minor things emerge in games, where it's after all this time, someone actually did this thing in this old school game. Because I think one thing I like about it is that there's this narrative that all games are patched to death nowadays. Everyone just has fixes. I remember when games were completely perfect whenever they were released, and everything was okay, and you never had to fix a game after it was released.
Yeah.
And I think this is a really strong argument that's no, people just let things rock for a while.
Right.
And in the cases where they just didn't immediately recall the game, and the PAL version will have fixes to the North American release or vice versa. I like it when these really small secrets are found in games, and it's after all this time, turns out games were still kind of a seat of your pants kind of thing the whole time, and not just recently.
Awesome. Jevem.
Hey, get a load of this. This was a headline that I came across on Yahoo that I unfortunately clicked on. I couldn't help myself, but the headline said, Star Wars just resolved a Return of the Jedi plot hole that has agonized fans for decades.
Oh, please alleviate my suffering.
Oh, God.
Do you guys know what the plot hole was?
No.
The Jedi
Apparently, Luke, when he left Cloud City, he traveled to Cloud City and then he left on the Millennium Falcon, but then in Return of the Jedi, he had his X-Wing back. And people didn't know. Apparently, they've agonized for decades. How did he get his X-Wing back when he had originally left on the Millennium Falcon? And apparently, there's a new book out.
Of course there is.
Where Leia and Luke go back to Cloud City because she gets frozen in carbonite, and he saves her. And then
now, how much do you actually care about this versus just you think it's a stupid headline you wanted to call it out?
I don't. I hate it. I hate that people are still doing this and complain about Star Wars plot holes that aren't actually plot holes. No one gives a crap. No one gives a crap. It doesn't matter. He just got his X-Wing back at some point. We didn't need an entire adventure with Leia getting frozen in carbonite by the Imperials so that he could go back and get his damn X-Wing.
That's fair.
I'm with you, man. Another one that people call out from Force Awakens is Maz.
Yeah.
They were I can't believe we never learned how she got the lightsaber.
Yeah.
Who cares? She found it.
It opened up the world of mystery a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that. Those always remind me of whenever you visit and you feel compelled to ask, well, how did you get this house? That's just a weird plot hole that at some point I met you, and now you do. Can you tell me the entire story? Like, that's like the worst possible version of the Final Fantasy VII Remake, is where they're like, okay, we're going to spend 5 hours addressing this one plot hole that fans were like agonizing over.
Well, I hope everybody enjoys the Final Fantasy VII
elaborated on.
Yeah, the Metal Gear Solid 5 approach, they call it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, let's make a whole game to explain this one weird inconsistency that no one really cared about.
Kyle, hit us.
Okay, mine's small. I just, made me laugh. Hey, get a load of this, you guys. I like seeing, one thing that I like about Twitter is just seeing people that I like and admire, like, interacting with each other.
Ooh, yeah.
And Corey, don't get too excited, Hans.
I love seeing people I like interact.
Corey Barlog tweeted a picture of him watching TV, and he said, man, The Expanse is so good. And it's just it's like he just literally is laying on a couch and he took a picture of his TV. And then Duncan Jones, the director of Moon and the World of Warcraft movie, replied, talk about burying the lead, Corey. And what he did is he took the picture that Corey Barlog tweeted out, and he zoomed in really close on his foot. And Corey Barlog is wearing toe socks.
It's good.
It's just like fun. It's like, oh, weird.
Yeah.
The director of Moon is calling out the director of God of War for wearing weird socks while watching TV.
Love it. Hey, get a load of this. Somebody tweeted at me and said, Rolo did, and said, hey, get a load of this, calling attention to it. On December 9th, 2015, the actor Matt Jones, known for playing Badger on Breaking Bad, tweeted, I did not voice Wedge in the new Final Fantasy game.
What?
So when the trailer that debuted Wedge and Wedge's voice originally aired, his voice was not Matt Jones, and everybody thought it was Matt Jones, and so Matt Jones had to clarify it. Then later was recast, and Matt Jones became the voice of Wedge, as far as I can tell.
Weird.
Isn't that bizarre? And I looked through Matt Jones's Twitter. It's the only time he's ever mentioned Wedge on Twitter was in 2015, insisting that it was not him.
So even with it coming out on Friday, he's not like, hey, look out for Final
I haven't
Fantasy
seen it
VII.
yet. No. It's very strange. Anyways, community choice, Jeffin, what do you got?
Hey, get a load of this.
Okay.
On behalf of the community. This one, Flaming Queso posted it in the Discord.
Yeah.
It was a tweet by Brian Altano, and I'm sorry I'm going to ruin the PlayStation 5 controller for you forever now, but Brian Altano posted, I can't unsee Mario's overalls in the new PlayStation 5 controller, and I'll send you the picture, Hanson, so you can show it here. It has ruined it for me, and you will never unsee that now.
Yeah, I saw a lot of very fun Photoshops of it's like, oh, it's kind of like a girl's bikini, or it looks like Totoro. I saw John Carson mock up. There's a lot of fun twists on there. But hey, thank you so much for listening to or watching this episode of the MinnMax Show, everybody. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And the deepest dive for Final Fantasy VII Remake basically starts now. If you're playing it, you can take some notes. We're looking for your specific thoughts on the game. The more specific you get with, what's up with this detail here, or this line here, or this art asset here, the higher the chance we'll read it on the show, because we want it to be the most comprehensive, thorough discussion about that game on the internet. So please help us make it happen. And the Patreon post will go up on Monday, and if you support us at any tier, you can leave a comment, and then we'll read it on the Game Club discussion. Anything anybody else would like to plug?
Call your parents.
Yes.
Check in on them. I got shamed by my mom because she called me and she asked how I was doing. This was like 2 weeks ago. And then at the end, she just said, well, yeah, I heard from my other children, and I just wanted to check in and see how you were doing. It's like, oh, crap. But just check in on the people that you love. Give them a call. Don't just text them like a millennial.
That's a good
Actually call and have a good conversation, since we're all locked up on our own right now.
Teach him how to use video chat. That was a fun experience with my parents recently, so I recommend it to everybody. But all right, thanks so much, everybody. Be good, have fun, let's go.